Bang, bang, bang. Some invisible blacksmith decided to use my brain as an anvil. I snapped my eyes open. Strange wooden ceiling. Strange old wrinkly face 2 inches from mine. My lord, the gods have blessed us. You're awake. Cool, cool, cool. Except I have no idea who this grandpa is. Then the memories hit me like a freight train full of someone else's embarrassing life choices. I transmigrated. I'm now Richard Shuang, last surviving member of the Shuang noble house. A cowardly, alcoholic, absolutely pathetic excuse for a baron's son. The original owner's dad was basically a drill sergeant who raised his kid through daily beatings and dawn training sessions. Result? A guy who smiled and nodded on the outside while being an absolute mess on the inside. Father of the Year meets Son of the Decade. Both awards are participation trophies. I sat up. The hangover nearly killed me right there. My finger had a bowstring callus. Years of archery training baked into this body. At least the previous owner wasn't completely useless. Just 97% useless. How's the castle? Old butler Edwin started trembling out the news. Orc raiders crossed the Frostwhisper Mountains. Hit the North Village. My father, the old baron, led 30 guards in a last stand so villagers could escape into the castle. And me? Where was the brave young heir during all this? Passed out drunk in the wine cellar. Got knocked unconscious by a falling barrel. My father died fighting orcs with his chest split open by a war axe, and I was getting concussed by alcohol. The irony is so thick you could spread it on toast. I looked out the window. The courtyard was packed with refugees. Women tearing their own skirts into bandages. Kids crying in their mother's arms. Old soldiers with broken arms leaning against walls, staring at nothing. They watched my father die and couldn't do a thing about it. Real uplifting stuff. Then ding. A translucent screen popped up in front of my face. War system activated. Dinars, 500. Recruitable units. Troop roster. Hold on. Hold on. Is this Mountain Blade? I got a game system. My stats popped up. Level 1, Strength 12, Agility 10, Charisma 8. Talent, locked. Territory, Shuang Castle, state of disrepair. Yeah, no kidding, it's in disrepair. I could have told you that without a magic screen. My lord? Are you alright? Gather everyone who can hold a weapon. Main hall. Now, I dragged myself to the Great Hall and immediately regretted having hope. 12 guards standing like scarecrows having an existential crisis. A bunch of farmers clutching rusty pitchforks with dirt still under their fingernails. And in the corner, 3 teenagers, the youngest one wiping his nose on his sleeve while hugging a bundle of javelins. This is my army. This is what stands between us and the orc horde. We're doomed. Fall iron, you spineless maggots. A voice like thunder shook dust from the ceiling beams. Out stomped a one-eyed mountain of a man in iron boots. He grabbed the nose-wiping kid, yanked him up, then pulled a dagger from his own belt and shoved it into the boy's hands. Grip it tight. Pretend it's the tavern owner's wife's underwear strap. The whole hall burst out laughing. Even the guys who looked like they were ready to write their wills 5 seconds ago. My system flashed. Hero unit detected. Guard Captain Galvin Iron Anvil. Trait, Battlefield Roar, morale 20%. Troop morale upgraded from collapsed to shaken. Edwin whispered that my father found this lunatic in some place called Blood Gorge and hired him with half the castle's dwarf whiskey supply. Money well spent, honestly. Galvin dropped to one knee in front of me. His iron gauntlet hit his breastplate like a church bell. Swaying pop, his one bloodshot, I looked like lava in the firelight. Tell me what's running through your veins right now. Wine or blood? Every single eye in the room was on me. Enough blood to paint the Frostwhisper Mountains red. The one-eyed psycho grinned, all fangs, and spun around to the crowd. You hear that, maggots? Tonight we're using orc intestines for wall mortar. I sent everyone to rest and pulled Edwin aside. How much silver in the treasury? About 300, my lord. But the orcs won't accept ransom. They only want blood and fire. Bring it all. Right now. The system converted it to 300 dinars, plus my starting 500. Total, 800. Weapon specialization popped up. Swords, bows, polearms. Bows. Didn't even blink. This was my go-to build in mount and blade. You don't mess with the classics. Then I went shopping. 20 Imperial recruits, 400 dinars. 5 citizen cavalry, 500 dinars. Remaining balance, -100. I'm in debt. I've been a lord for approximately 4 hours, and I'm already in the red. Incredible. Truly a born leader of men and finances. My lord. Movement outside the walls. I ran up to the battlements, and there they were, 20 spearmen in formation at the gate, 5 light cavalry waiting nearby, all with little green markers floating over their heads that only I could see. Edwin nearly had a religious experience. By the gods, where did these warriors come from? Old friends of the Shuang family. I smiled for the first time since waking up in this world. Open the gates. Welcome our reinforcements. Edwin was too busy making holy signs on his chest to ask follow-up questions. Perfect. Midnight. We slipped out the side gate. The system gave me a top-down tactical map. I could see everything. Orc main force clustered around their campfire in the village center. West side. Just 2 sentries guarding cages full of captured villagers. 2 guards. I had a fancy family heirloom bow with 25% range and a brand new aiming assist built into my eyeballs. Those orcs never had a chance. I drew the swaying hunting bow. A ghostly targeting reticle appeared in my vision. Crosshair locked onto orc skull number 1. Released. The arrow dipped mid-flight like it had GPS navigation, punched straight through the orc's eye socket. The second sentry barely flinched before arrow number 2 was already buried in his throat. Double kill. Archery proficiency 10. Unlocked. Quick knocking. Passive. Impossible. Some pockmarked old soldier muttered. Galvin jumped in immediately. You see that, rookies? That is the legendary Shuang falling star arrow technique. He made that up. On the spot. Didn't even hesitate. This man is a propaganda machine, and I love him. Galvin, take the guards and free the villagers when chaos breaks out. Everyone else, with me. I'd spotted the orc food supply on my tactical map. Step 1. Arson. Step 2. Rescue. Step 3. Pray. The moment the torch hit the grain pile, I sent the charge order through the system. The sky turned orange. Orcs ran around screaming. Beautiful chaos. My 20 recruits advanced in a shield wall, wooden shields with spears poking out like an angry hedgehog learning to walk. Slow, clumsy, but functional. Orcs came charging. The lead one caught an arrow through the throat from 50 paces away. That was me. Bowstring still vibrating. 3rd kill. 4th kill. The system kept feeding me wind speed corrections and distance adjustments like a helpful little ballistics calculator living in my head. 1 arrow curved around a shield to hit an orc in the eye. Physics left the chat. I'm not complaining. Then a massive orc with a warhammer sent one of my recruits flying, shield and all. System tagged him as an elite berserker. I drew the bow to full tension. The swaying hunting bow hummed. The berserker threw his head back to roar. Bad move. Open mouth. Meet arrow. Critical hit. Archery proficiency 15. Right flank. Cavalry charge. 5 horsemen cut into the orc formation like a hot knife through green, angry butter. Lances gleaming in the firelight. Perfect V formation. The remaining orcs broke and ran. When the last one dropped, silence hit the battlefield like a physical wall. Every soldier was staring at me, standing on that little hill, bow in hand, looking like I actually knew what I was doing. Which, thanks to the system, I kinda did. Clean up the battlefield, I said, keeping my voice steady. Tie up any living orcs. I want to know why they attacked the North Village. Inside my head, the victory screen was going wild. 32 orcs killed. 16 of mine dead, 10 wounded. 320 XP, 160 dinars, 150 troop XP, and 50 units of grain. Mission complete. Defend the homeland. Bonus, 200 XP, 500 dinars. Level up to 2. Troops eligible for upgrade. I went from drunk in a wine cellar to battlefield commander in 1 day. The debt is paid off. My soldiers are looking at me like I'm some kind of war god instead of a guy who was unconscious under a barrel this morning. Not bad for a first day in another world. Not bad at all. Morning light hit the castle walls and made them look almost pretty. Almost. Like putting lipstick on a crumbling ruin. I stood on the battlements running my fingers over cold stone, and the reality finally sank in. This isn't a dream. I'm stuck here, in a medieval fantasy world, with ORCS coming to kill me. My system cheerfully popped up a daily income report like some kind of fantasy accounting software. Food production, 40 units per day. Tax income, 85 dinars. Commerce, 32 dinars. But the market is 40% destroyed, so that number is basically crying. Total daily revenue, 117 dinars. Edwin shuffled up behind me with a scroll. Bloodshot eyes, shaking hands. The whole, we're all going to die, aesthetic. My lord, the damage report. Perhaps we should request aid from the capital. I took the scroll. The system instantly digitized it because apparently my brain has a built-in scanner now. Down in the courtyard, cavalry still had bloody arrows sticking out of their saddlebags. Recruits were awkwardly helping farm women carry wounded people. And everyone kept sneaking glances at the ORC corpses still hanging from the walls like the world's worst decoration. Send for help, I told Edwin. But the capital's reinforcements won't arrive for at least 2 weeks. I pointed toward the Frostwhisper Mountains. Let's hope we're still alive by then. Great. Inspiring leadership speech there, Richard. The rescued villagers started filing into the inner castle. System pinged. 47 refugees, 12 available laborers. Most of them looked like ghosts wearing rags. Women clutching babies. Kids with 1,000-yard stares. The kind of scene that makes your chest hurt, even when you're a transmigrator who's only been here for 1 day. Get all the blankets from storage, I told Edwin. Hot water. Porridge from the kitchen. His face did that thing where he wanted to say, but our supplies. Do it. He did it. Being a lord has exactly one perk so far. People actually listen when you talk. I pulled up the system map. North Village, completely torched. West Farmland, trampled. Castle, held together by stubbornness and gravity. 7 days of food left. 7 days. My lord, Galvin's voice could shatter windows. You need to see this. In the courtyard, 3 cavalrymen were dragging a tied-up orc. This one was missing its left ear, replaced by 3 bronze earrings, which is apparently orc fashion. Even bound up like a Christmas ham, it was still thrashing and growling. Caught it trailing behind the retreating force. Wounded leg, couldn't keep up. I looked at the bone-deep gash on its right leg. That's one nasty limp. Galvin barked something in ORCS, which, by the way, sounds like someone gargling gravel while angry. The orc stopped struggling and stared at me. Then it grinned with those disgusting jagged fangs. Gorvash Crosshag. Gol Mac Zug Mograth Shothok. Translation, Galvin's face went dark. It says the wrath of the blood scar will burn the swaying nest. Also, Chief Gruel plans to drink from your skull on the full moon. 3 days from now, 3 days. A warlord named Gruul wants to use my head as a goblet. This is fine. Everything is fine. I sent cavalry to scout and ordered the orc locked in the dungeon with medical treatment. Because I need information from that ugly mug, and dead prisoners don't talk. Noon. Castle Hall packed wall to wall. I sat in the Lord's chair while the system ran real-time transcription of everyone's complaints like the world's most depressing meeting minutes. The wheat fields are gone, old farmer, face like a dried riverbed. We won't survive to harvest. My forge needs charcoal, blacksmith grime, coughing between every word. Fix the walls first. Galvin punched the stone wall so hard dust rained down. This man's solution to everything is violence against architecture. I raised my hand. Instant silence. The system had already sorted everything into a nice priority list. Emergency quest. Post-war reconstruction. Food supply, 7 days remaining. Defenses, 65% intact. Weapons, 42% worn out. Here's the plan. My voice filled the hall. Food will be handled. North Village survivors move to the castle's north quarter. Edwin handles housing assignments. I turn to the blacksmith. Forge gets priority repair. 5 strong workers. I want to see smoke from that furnace by sunrise tomorrow. Yes, my lord. Evening. I walked the walls alone. Morale bars floated over every guard's head like sad little progress indicators. Low, but slightly higher than yesterday. Honeymead bonus. 5 morale. Thank you, alcohol. Solving problems in every universe. I found a collapsed section on the southeast corner. Hidden from view. Perfect testing spot. The system asked, repair wall. Cost, 30 dinars. I mentally hit yes. The fallen stones lifted themselves. No sparkles, no magical glow. Just rocks floating up and stacking into a perfect wall section like an invisible mason was working overtime. The only sound was stone grinding on stone, completely lost in the evening noise. I just spent 30 dinars to make physics cry. Worth every coin. Late night. War room. I'm drawing defense plans on parchment with charcoal while the system projects a 3D hologram that only I can see. Main attack will hit here. I tap the gate on the sand table. Orcs love the front door approach. Subtlety isn't really their brand. Galvin scratched his chin scar. That section of wall needs patching in several spots. I gave him my best mysterious smile. I'll handle it. His one eye narrowed suspiciously, but he didn't push. Smart man. Deeper into the night, I snuck down to the old wine cellar. Damp stone walls, a few oil lamps, and 12 system soldiers standing in perfect rows like mannequins. Eyes blank, bodies motionless, zero personality. Creepy? Extremely. Useful? Also extremely. System. Upgrade all eligible soldiers. Cost. 45 dinars. 3 Imperial recruits promoted to Imperial Infantry. New skill unlocked. Shield wall. Basic. Morale 10. The 3 soldiers shuddered. Their crappy leather armor glowed faintly. Their spears transformed into heavy Imperial swords, and proper kite shields materialized on their backs. I looked at my remaining 485 dinars and spent the rest of the night repairing every damaged section of wall. Stone by stone, the system rebuilt my castle while the whole population slept. Dawn broke. Villagers stepped outside and froze. The walls, the broken, crumbling, sad excuse for fortifications, were perfect. Every crack filled, every breach sealed. Like a construction crew worked a miracle overnight. Long live the Starfaller, someone shouted. It caught on immediately. Suddenly, everyone was chanting it. The Starfaller, because of that arrow trick during the battle, I guess. Galvin's made-up legend about the falling star arrow had become my actual title. Every local soldier who heard it got 5 morale. I'm literally gaining combat effectiveness through branding. Marketing works in every dimension. Day 3. Dawn. A horn blast nearly gave the entire castle a collective heart attack. Guards scrambled to the walls in complete panic, only to discover it was a drill. My drill. Too slow. Galvin was already screaming. Orcs would have been drinking from your skulls by now. I watched from the arrow tower. System soldiers moved in perfect sync like they shared one brain. Local guards ran around like chickens who'd just discovered the concept of fear. After the drill, I gathered all squad leaders. The real test is coming. Starting today, we're on wartime rations. Everyone dispersed with grim faces. Then the system dropped a notification that turned my blood cold. Scout alert. Orc scouts detected in the Frostwhisper Mountains. Estimated main force arrival, 36 to 48 hours. 48 hours. Maybe 36. Chief Gruul is coming with his skull goblet dreams, and I've got a repaired castle, a handful of upgraded soldiers, one one-eyed maniac, and a nickname I didn't ask for. Let's see if the Starfaller can survive round 2. Standing on the wall, staring at the system's scout warning like it's a countdown timer on a bomb strapped to my life. Orc scouts in the Frostwhisper Mountains. Getting closer. Tick-tock. Deep breath. Cold air hit my lungs like swallowing a glacier. At least my brain woke up. My lord, Galvin's voice could wake the dead. And annoy them. Patrol found refugees. I rushed down. Through the morning fog, 20-something ragged humans huddled at the gate. An old man with white hair collapsed to his knees, forehead smacking the cold stone. Please, my lord. Orcs destroyed our village. We've been running for 3 days. Sad. Heartbreaking. But my eyes had already locked onto something else. Back of the group. A tall figure hunching over and still towering above everyone. Tattered cloak, but I caught a metallic glint underneath. This guy wasn't a farmer. System confirmed it. Recruitable hero unit. Royce Blackblade. Level 15. Trait. Tactical command. Defense damage 15%. Level 15. I'm level 2. This man is walking around my refugee line like a legendary weapon disguised as a homeless person. Open the gates. Edwin, set them up in the east wing. Hot soup, clean bandages. Everyone shuffled through except Mr. Tall, Dark, and Dangerous. He just stood there, not coming in. I like to check which way the doors open first. His voice sounded like gravel in a blender, so I don't hit a wall when I need to run. His right hand hadn't left his hip once. Hidden short sword. This guy sleeps ready to kill someone. Royce Blackblade. Former squad commander, 3rd Royal Legion. He introduced himself like he was reading his own obituary. Currently a homeless stray dog. System info matched. Good. He's not lying. He's just dramatically honest. The Shuang family welcomes capable warriors, I said with a deliberate pause. especially ones familiar with orc tactics. His eyes narrowed. You know who I am. I know you can help me hold this castle. Dodge the question. Classic move. Payment is 3 meals a day and a winter where you don't have to run. Royce actually laughed. Smart little eagle. Deal. Hero unit Royce Blackblade joined. Loyalty, 65. Initial approval. Only 65? I literally just saved him from starving in a ditch. Tough crowd. War room. Sheepskin maps spread across a rough wooden table. Royce's finger traced the terrain like a surgeon examining a patient. This isn't a normal raid. He tapped a pass on the western side of the Frostwhisper Range. Orcs usually take Bloodhoof Trail. It leads straight to the rich river valley town. They went out of their way to hit Shuang territory. There's a reason. Galvin scratched under his iron glove. Food? South Village Granary is packed with fresh wheat. Then Edwin burst through the door looking like he'd found either treasure or a bomb. My lord, Blacksmith Grime found this in the battle loot. He opened his palm. A dark reddish-brown rock. Unrefined iron ore. Grime says the composition doesn't match any local deposits. The orcs must have found a source somewhere in the Frostwhisper Mountains. The room went dead silent. Royce's eyes lit up like someone just told him Christmas came early. Iron ore. That explains everything. Iron is the one thing orc tribes can never get enough of. My brain started spinning. Iron mine equals long-term income equals game changer. But developing it needs workers and money, and I have neither. Every resource right now needs to go toward not dying. Keep the iron or secret, I decided. We deal with the orcs first, mine later. Priorities. Step 1, survive. Step 2, get rich. Can't do step 2 as a corpse. My lord, an envoy from Greystone Fortress. Galvin and Royce exchanged looks. Greystone Fortress, our nearest neighbor. Lord Horn Greystone. Reputation, garbage. In the Great Hall, a skinny tall man in fancy mink robes was admiring our tapestries like he was browsing a museum. He turned with the most theatrical bow I've ever seen. First, allow me to express Lord Horn's deepest condolences for the tragic death of the old Baron. His valor and wisdom were renowned throughout the North. The fake sympathy lasted exactly 4 seconds before his tone switched to cheerful. However, times change. My master has heard of your orc troubles and generously offers 50 elite soldiers for permanent garrison duty. 50 soldiers. That's actually a lot. My spider sense was screaming. Lord Horn's generosity is surprising. I swirled my wine cup casually. What does he want in return? The envoy pulled a gold-trimmed scroll from his sleeve like a magic trick. My master's only niece, Lady Eleanor, just turned 17. He unrolled a painted portrait of a young girl. A marriage alliance would ensure our borders remain forever. The hall went silent enough to hear dust falling. A political marriage. 50 soldiers in exchange for making me Horn's puppet through family ties. This guy wanted to buy the Shuang territory with his niece and a smile. Tell Lord Horn, I said slowly. The Shuang family handles its own problems. The envoy's smile cracked like thin ice. My master also wished me to remind you. About last quarter's overdue grain taxes will be repaid in full after the harvest. With interest, I cut him off. Edwin, prepare a comfortable guest room. The envoy can leave tomorrow. The fake smile vanished. The envoy snapped his scroll shut like he was breaking a stick. It seems the Shuang family's arrogance is as hereditary as its poverty. Cold sneer. 2 steps backward. My master will remember this humiliation. I would rather sleep in the wilderness than spend another moment in this castle that's about to become rubble. He stormed out. Galvin's fist hit the table so hard the candles jumped. Filthy vulture. Trying to rob us while we're bleeding. Couldn't have said it better myself. Night fell. I went down to the dungeon. Damp air. Blood and rust smell. Cozy. The system popped up a prisoner management interface. Because of course there's one. The chained orc jerked its head up. Yellow-brown eyes shrinking in the darkness. Fangs bared. Gruel will RIP out your heart. Thanks to the system's new auto-translate feature, I could now understand orc trash talk in real time. What a privilege. I pulled a roasted deer leg from my inventory and tossed it on the floor. Grease dripped. The smell was incredible. Even I wanted to eat it, and I'd already had dinner. Want some? I asked in butchered Orcish. The system showed me his stats. Grash Bloodfawn. Bloodscar Tribe. Combat rating C. Recruitment progress. 30 out of 100 hostile. Recruitment conditions. Imprisoned 3 days, currently day 2. Provide meat or alcohol, 20 progress. Defeat his chieftain, 50. Grash glared at the meat. His stomach growled loud enough to echo off the walls. Hunger versus pride, the eternal battle. Hunger won in about 6 seconds flat. He snatched the meat and tore into it like a wood chipper eating a log. Recruitment progress, 30-50. But then a red warning popped up. Recruiting orcs will tank army morale. Each orc recruited equals -1 morale. Having any orcs in the army equals -2 morale per day because human soldiers really don't like working with the guys who killed their friends last week. I filed that under problems for future me. I tossed him a flask of dwarf liquor, the kind that could strip paint off walls and knock out a horse. Grash's eyes went wide. He sniffed the flask, nostrils flaring. Dwarf brew. Good stuff, he chugged it. The scars on his green neck rippled with each swallow. This orc could drink. Tell me about the Bloodscar tribe, straight to business. Especially the iron mine. The alcohol loosened his tongue beautifully. Chieftain Gruul's hunting party found a landslide on the north side of the Frostwhisper Mountains 2 months ago. Exposed reddish rock. Iron ore. I tossed him another strip of smoked venison. Exact location. Grash drew in the dirt with charcoal while chewing. Third Bald Mountain. He circled a spot. Mining camp still has 50 warriors guarding it. How many warriors in the whole tribe? His eyes flickered, a tiny spark of caution. But the dwarf booze was doing its job. 6 hunting parties. He started counting on thick fingers. Plus, he caught himself. Mouth clamped shut. Eyes went suspicious. Too late, buddy. I already got more than you wanted to give. I pretended not to notice. What about the elderly and children? Living at the mine? No. The nest is at, full stop. Eyes narrowed to slits. I can't say. Fair enough. Got plenty already. Then Royce burst through the dungeon door, night dew still on his leather armor. My lord. Scouts spotted at least 500 moving toward the Frostwhisper Mountains. 500. That's not a war party. That's a migration. Grash's muscles went taut. His right hand unconsciously reached for where his war axe used to hang. A tribal migration? I asked, watching his face carefully. His pupils contracted sharply. Bingo. The Bloodscar tribe isn't just raiding, they're relocating. The whole tribe. Women, children, elders, everyone. They found iron in these mountains, and they're moving the entire operation here. This isn't a hit and run. They're trying to move iron. I stood up, leather armor creaking. You'll make the smart choice, Grash. Left him in the dark with his dwarf booze and his second thoughts. Then, in the pitch-black hours before dawn, bang 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 on my door. My lord. Scout report, Royce's voice through the thick oak. Orc main force has reached the north village. They're here. An entire tribe's worth of angry green muscle, led by a chieftain who wants my skull as a drinking cup, and they just set up camp in the burned ruins of My village. 48 hours became 0. Showtime. I shot upright in bed and yanked open the system menu before my eyes were even fully open. Orcs at the north village. Main force. Coming for My skull. I need firepower, and I need it yesterday. Barracks function unlocked. Imperial Archers X30 available. Cost, 900 dinars. 900 dinars for 30 archers? That's my entire wallet. Did the system just look at my bank account and decide to drain it completely? Confirmed, no hesitation. Can't take money to the afterlife anyway. The castle horn blasted. My lord. A force appeared outside. I climbed the wall, and there they stood. 30 archers in matching brown leather armor. Longbows gleaming in the morning sun. Quivers packed with arrows, and every single shoulder plate stamped with the Shuang eagle crest. By the gods, a guard whispered. It's the Shuang Ranger Company. The system had auto-generated a backstory for them. These soldiers didn't just pop out of thin air. No. According to everyone's sudden shared memory, they were a legendary ranger unit that had been away on a secret mission. The system is basically writing fan fiction about my army and making everyone believe it. Their leader snapped a perfect military salute. Alan Longbow reporting with the Ranger squad, my lord. Perfect timing, Alan. I clapped his shoulder like we were old war buddies instead of strangers who met 3 seconds ago. Get your boys to the arrow towers. Orcs could hit us any minute. Morale 5, professional reinforcements arrived. Then the system dropped something that made my inner gamer scream with joy. Defense mode activated. Special permission unlocked. Siege engine summoning. Available. Catapults X4. Ammo, 40 stone bundles, 10 per machine. Catapults. I get catapults. Also the enemy intel came in, 300 orc warriors, 15 wolf riders, 300. Against my, let me count, roughly 60-something troops and some armed farmers. Great odds. Just wonderful. I walked along the wall pretending to inspect the defenses while secretly pressing my palm against the inner wall stone. Summon catapults X4. Confirmed. The ground rumbled. Guards peeked over the edge nervously. Stand back, for bronze-trimmed catapults rose up through the wall's base like mechanical monsters waking from hibernation. They were dripping with cellar moisture. Actual cobwebs hanging off them. The system even added atmosphere effects. 5 stars for production design. Edwin's eyes nearly popped out of his skull. He served this family for 30 years. He knows there were never any catapults hidden in the basement. But then he looked at me, and whatever golden shimmer the system put in my eyes apparently convinced him to swallow his questions whole. He turned to the stunned soldiers with the smoothness of a lifelong professional liar. Did you really think a 300-year-old swaying castle would have emergency measures? Edwin. My man. My legend. Covering for supernatural nonsense without even being asked. Then Blacksmith Grime gasped so hard he nearly inhaled his own tongue. He pointed at the catapult's inner gear mechanism. This is the old lord's personal seal. Everyone crowded around. Sure enough, a faded eagle head stamp on the bronze axle. The system had forged my dead father's signature onto the equipment. Cognitive anchoring complete. Troop acceptance, 91%. The system doesn't just summon weapons. It commits identity fraud on behalf of dead people. I'm impressed and slightly terrified. Galvin kicked the nearest catapult base, listened to the solid thud, and grinned like a psychopath at Christmas. Sturdy coffins. Perfect for orc funerals. He grabbed 2 frozen recruits by their collars. Start loading. Morale 10, ancestral protection effect. By sunrise, all 4 catapults were loaded and ready. And not a moment too soon, because the orc army appeared on the horizon like a green tidal wave. Battlefield awareness activated. Enemy leader detected. Chieftain Gruul, red skull icon. The system zoomed my vision automatically. There he was, riding a massive black werewolf. 2 full heads taller than any other orc. Dark green skin covered in white scars like someone had used him as a cutting board. And on his shoulder, a battle axe the size of a door. Still had brown bloodstains on it. He didn't even bother cleaning my father's blood off his axe. That's personal. That's very personal. Catapults ready, I shouted, fingers caressing the wooden frame like a kid with a new toy. This was exactly like the game. No, better than the game. I could feel the wood vibrating, smell the oil on the mechanisms. My hands were actually shaking with excitement, and I'm not sure if it was fear or pure nerd joy. Aim for the dense clusters. The orcs let out a war cry that shook the air. They charged. All 4 catapults fired simultaneously. The sound was like 4 angry gods clearing their throats at once. 1 stone bundle screamed toward Gruul, but that monster somehow sensed it coming. He rolled sideways off his wolf with impossible agility and threw a blue-bladed hand axe that cut the net's rope midair. Stones scattered harmlessly across empty ground. Are you kidding me? He just parried a catapult shot. What kind of final boss nonsense? But MY catapult. Number 2, landed perfectly. The stone bundle exploded in the middle of a packed orc formation. Blood. Chaos. Green body parts going in directions body parts should not go. God EM. I pumped my fist. This was infinitely more satisfying than clicking a mouse. I was about to order a reload when Gruul started screaming at his troops. The orcs immediately scattered from tight formation into spread-out wolf-pack tactics. TCH. They figured it out that fast. Game AI would never adapt this quickly. Reality difficulty is broken. Where's the patch? Where's the nerf? High arc trajectory, I yelled, refusing to give up my catapult fun. The stones flew higher this time, catching maybe a dozen stragglers. But after the 5th volley, the orcs were already at the base of the walls with siege ladders. Close combat positions. Archers free fire. I mentally cursed reality's difficulty setting. In the game I would have just quick-loaded a save by now. No save files in real life. Terrible game design. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend. I grabbed my swaying hunting bow. System assist popped up. I locked onto the orc carrying their war banner. Arrow through the throat. Banner crashed down. Small panic ripple through the orc ranks. You're welcome. Then a blood-soaked orc vaulted over the wall right in front of me, axe already swinging at my face. I dodged sideways, yanked 3 arrows from my quiver simultaneously. Quick knocking activated automatically. 3 arrows fired almost as one. First arrow deflected by his axe face. Second arrow punched into his shoulder. Third arrow went straight through his forehead. Triple shot. New skill unlocked. Gale shooting. I'm becoming an archery machine. This body plus system aim assist equals absolute destruction. My lord. East wall is falling. A messenger stumbled toward me looking like he'd seen death, and death was winning. System map confirmed. East wall garrison was nearly wiped out. 3 siege ladders already up. Orcs pouring over. Royce, take the reserves to the east wall. I sprinted to find a high vantage point. Found one. 5 arrows. 5 orcs climbing ladders. 5 orcs and no longer climbing ladders. The 5th one fell backward and knocked 2 more off like a bowling ball hitting pins. Achievement unlocked. Ladder Guardian. Nice title. Would look great on my tombstone if I die today. Boom. The main gate. Battering ram. The door beam cracked. The gate was groaning like a dying animal. Wood splinters flying everywhere. Guards above the gate were frantically hauling stones. Archers cover. I pulled 2 arrows, fired, and 2 orcs pushing the ram dropped. Bowstring was still humming when I heard the heavy thud of soldiers behind me wrestling a massive stone block to the edge. The stone dropped. Direct hit on the battering ram's front end. 2 orcs crushed. But more green bodies immediately filled the gaps like the world's worst game of whack-a-mole. Then I spotted him. An orc wearing a bone helmet standing behind the ram. A field commander. He was the one coordinating this assault. I reached into my belt pouch. 3 special armor-piercing arrows. The expensive stuff. System lock-on engaged. First arrow, through a gap in the bone helmet. Second arrow, into his weapon arm. Third arrow, dead center chest. The commander dropped. The ram crew faltered. Defender morale 15%. Keep dropping stones. I pointed at the gate. Soldiers shoved the last few boulders over the edge. Crunching sounds. Orc screaming. But the gate was already cracking. Through the widening gaps, I could see an ocean of green on the other side. Pushing, snarling, hungry for blood. My blood, specifically. The gate was about to break, and I was fresh out of catapult ammo, running low on arrows, and my brilliant strategy of shoot everything that moves was hitting its natural limitations. Round 2 wasn't over yet, and round 2 was not going well. The east gate exploded inward like it was made of crackers. First through the gap, a wolf the size of a horse, drooling toxic slobber from fangs that could bite a man in half. And riding that nightmare fuel? Chieftain Gruul himself. 2 broken arrow shafts sticking out of his left shoulder. Dark green blood leaking through his armor gaps. Didn't even slow him down. This guy treats arrows like accessories. The system helpfully displayed his health bar floating above his head. HP 320/400. Little whelp, his voice sounded like someone dragging a boulder across gravel. I'll hang your intestines from my war banner. Creative threat. Points for originality. Minus points for trying to kill me. I grabbed my last 3 arrows. Triple shot, go. First arrow straight at his face. Gruul flicked his axe upward and split it in half mid-air. Wood chips everywhere. Second arrow already at his throat. He twisted his head. The arrowhead scraped his iron neck guard and threw sparks. Third arrow found the gap in his right shoulder joint while he was still recovering. Critical hit. HP 320/285. Right shoulder damaged. Attack speed minus 10%. He roared but kept charging. The war axe carved through the air in a death arc that would have split me in half. I dove sideways. The axe smashed through stone. Flying rock chips sliced my cheek open. HP 87/11076/110. Oh good. I have a health bar too. And it's going the wrong direction. Shield wall. Galvin's voice ripped through the chaos. 3 Imperial infantry snapped into formation. Shields locked. Gruul's axe came down like divine punishment. 2 shields shattered on impact. Wood splinters flew like shrapnel. But Galvin, one-eyed, bleeding, absolutely unhinged Galvin, jammed his shoulder against his cracking shield and held. Shield wall skill triggered. Damage reduced 20%. I ditched the bow and drew my steel longsword. The blade hummed coming out of the scabbard. Weapon switch, bow one-handed sword. Proficiency drop, 65-42. My sword skill is literally half my bow skill. Fantastic. Bringing a B- to an A+ fight. Gruul was winding up to finish Galvin when my blade kissed his neck. Just a shallow cut. A string of blood droplets flew through the air like dark jewels. A young soldier seized the moment and jabbed his spear at the giant wolf, forcing it back 2 steps. Teamwork. Beautiful, desperate teamwork. I deliberately lunged left, targeting Gruul's arrow-damaged right arm. You only know how to sneak attack. Gruul spun with a horizontal axe sweep. I ducked under it. Sword point punched into his shoulder. Gruul screamed, but instead of flinching like a normal creature, his rage meter apparently went to maximum. He clamped his shoulder muscles around my blade, trapping it inside his own body, and swung the axe at my chest with his free hand. He used his flesh as a sword trap. What kind of psychopath? I abandoned the sword and leaned back like I was doing the world's most terrified limbo. The axe edge scraped across my chest plate, leaving a deep dent that looked like a canyon. HP, 76/1 1062/110. That chest armor just saved my life, and it's now shaped like modern art. 3 archers on the wall fired simultaneously, forcing Gruul to defend. I rolled, grabbed a fallen spear from the ground. Weapon switch, sword polearm. Talent triggered. Infantry commander, polearm damage 15%. Third weapon in 60 seconds. I'm not a warrior, I'm a weapon buffet. The spear lashed out like a snake tongue, ripping a gash across Gruul's waist. His giant wolf sensed the danger and lunged at me, but 2 spearmen flanked it from the sides. I jabbed upward and carved a bone-deep wound into the wolf's leg. Coward. Gruul leaped off the crippled wolf and came at me on foot. The axe whistled through the air with enough force to split the planet. I blocked with the spear shaft. The shaft snapped in half like a toothpick. I stumbled backward. Galvin and his men formed a human wall in front of me, buying time with their bodies. Gruul grinned with every fang showing. Axe rising for the kill, Galvin threw his short sword. It hit Gruul's wrist. The death blow went sideways, and the axe buried itself in the castle wall instead of in anyone's skull. The axe was stuck. Gruul's hand was injured. His axe was wedged in stone. His right shoulder was full of arrows. This was it. The one moment. I grabbed the broken spear, the half without a point, and rammed it forward with everything I had. The bare wooden shaft punched into Gruul's shoulder. Went deep. Critical hit. Gruul HP, 10. The chieftain's massive body crashed to the ground like a felled tree. His dying eyes stared at the weapon that killed him, a pointless, broken stick. I spat blood. Who says you need a sharp end to kill someone? Achievement unlocked. Reason persuasion. Kill an enemy with a blunt weapon. The system has a sense of humor. I just stabbed a warlord to death with a glorified broomstick and the achievement is called Reason Persuasion. I can't even be mad. That's comedy. Gruul twitched twice and went still. The system erupted. Elite unit killed. Gruul, Bone Crusher. XP 1000. Level up to 3. Strength 1, Agility 1, Charisma 1. New talent unlocked. Orc Slayer. Damage versus orcs 20%. The moment Gruul died, the entire battlefield broke. Some orcs ran. Others went berserk and started attacking everything, including each other. All forces, charge. Gates opened. Cavalry poured out first, infantry behind them in tight formation. Leaderless orcs got surrounded, split apart, picked off by archers one by one. By sunset, it was over. Snow Eagle Castle stood. Barely, but it stood. I sat on the wall while a medic bandaged my wounds. The system had already started regenerating my HP, 60/120ths, and climbing. My chest looked like someone had taken a cheese grater to it, but the game mechanics meant I could still move just fine. My lord, you're made of iron, the medic said, eyes wide. A normal person would be paralyzed from these injuries. I smiled and sent him to treat the others. Can't exactly explain that I have video game healing. The final scoreboard popped up. Battle of Snow Eagle Castle, defense victory. 287 orc warriors killed. 9 wolf riders killed. Lost. 34 soldiers, 2 light cavalry. Loot. 2,000 dinars, 50 iron ingots, 1 orc war banner, 800 units of grain. 2,000 dinars. I went from debt to rich in one battle. The grain alone solves my food crisis for weeks. I had Gruul's massive axe mounted above the fireplace in the great hall. Trophy wall. Every lord needs one. The victory feast was rowdy. Galvin raised his oak mug. To our lord. First he crippled the chieftain's arm with arrows, then finished him with a stick. The hall roared. Halfway through the celebration, Edwin sidled up and whispered, "My lord, the orc prisoner in the dungeon wants to see you. Says he has important information." I set down my cup and headed to the deepest cell. Grash Bloodfawn looked up at me with complicated eyes. The chains clinked as he shifted. "Human leader, you killed Gruul." I waited. "The Bloodscar tribe is finished." His voice was strangely calm. "By tradition, the victor has the right to decide the fate of the defeated tribe. Women, children, territory. All of it." The system hit me with a choice screen. Tribal inheritance event triggered. Option 1. Extermination. Kill everyone. Get 2,000 dinars. All orc tribes hate you forever. Option 2. Slavery. Forced labor. Iron production 30%. But costs 300 dinars per month in suppression expenses. Basically running a prison payroll. Option 3. Integration. Accept those who surrender. Get 22 loyal orc warriors. Human soldiers lose 10 morale for 30 days because they really don't want orc co-workers. Genocide is evil and makes every orc tribe my permanent enemy. Slavery is expensive and morally disgusting. Integration costs morale, but gains 22 orc warriors who actually want to fight for me. Grash, if I gave you the chance to lead what's left of the Bloodscar clan, what would you choose? Chains scraped against stone. Every muscle in his body went taut. Human, are you toying with your prey's patience? I never joke about a warrior's dignity. I stepped closer. Submit, and your people don't just survive, they survive as warriors. His breathing turned heavy. Thunder heavy. The dungeon practically vibrated. Then slowly, painfully slowly, Grash dropped to one knee. The chains hammered against the stone floor like a judge's gavel. By the souls of my ancestors. The Bloodscar clan will fight for you. Choice confirmed. Integration policy. Gained 22 orc warriors. Tech unlocked. Tribal assimilation, basic. Warning. Human soldier morale -10 for 30 days. 22 orc warriors. A month of grumpy human soldiers. And the foundation of something nobody in this world has ever tried. A mixed-race army under a human lord who killed his enemy's chieftain with a stick. My father would have either been proud or horrified. Probably both. I walked back into the victory feast and immediately noticed something off. Every soldier in the room was subconsciously leaning away from someone standing by the fireplace. A figure in a silver-gray cloak was examining Gruul's war axe on the wall. Moonlight silver hair flowing out from under the hood like liquid mercury. Crude forging technique, the stranger said. Unworthy of Frostwhisper or... She turned around. Pointed ears. Emerald green eyes. A sword wrapped in living ivy at her hip. An Yelef. An actual, pointy-eared, impossibly elegant Yelef just casually walked into my castle during a party like she owned the place. I am Ethel of the Silver Pine clan, ranger of the Frostwhisper Peaks. She gestured toward the mountains outside. We watched the entire battle. Watched. They watched. As former allies, I narrowed my eyes. Elven arrows could have saved more lives. She didn't even blink. We don't interfere in human conflicts, especially when traitors wear allied masks. Then she pulled a blood-stained strip of cloth from her cloak. A roaring bear head crest barely visible through the dried blood. My blood went cold. That was Horn's family crest. The Greystone envoy's emblem. Last night, Ethel pressed the cloth onto the table. Our scouts saw his envoy leaving the orc camp. Everything clicked like a lock snapping shut. Horn's niece, the marriage proposal. The joint defense terms. That slimy envoy who stormed out claiming he'd rather sleep in the wilderness. He didn't sleep in the wilderness. He went straight to the orc camp to tell Gruul to attack. Horn wanted to absorb my territory through marriage. When I refused, he went to plan B, have the orcs wipe me out. Probably planned to swoop in afterward and claim the land as a concerned neighbor. I brought Ethel to the war room. Evidence. My voice came out calmer than I expected. The elf gave me a condescending smirk. Humans always need truth spoon-fed before they'll swallow it. She produced a sheepskin scroll. Look at this, little eagle. A terrain map of the Frostwhisper Mountains. A red line drawn from the Bloodscar tribe's old camp directly to my north village. The attack route. Planned. Coordinated. Paid for. 3 days ago, our rangers intercepted a messenger. Horn traded food and weapons to the orcs in exchange for attacking you. Deep breath. Why help me? Elves supposedly stay out of human affairs. Ethel's emerald eyes hardened. Because Horn's miners cut down the silver pine sacred grove. Her voice dropped to something dangerous. When 3,000-year-old silver pines fell, our prophet heard the mother tree weeping. Ah, so this isn't charity. This is revenge with extra steps. A trade, then, I said. Elves provide intel and support. I stop Horn's mining operation. Smart little lord. Her smile turned predatory. But I didn't just bring bad news. She clapped her hands. 2 elf warriors materialized from the shadows wearing vine armor. Silent as ghosts. Carrying an oak chest between them. They opened it, and my system went golden. Special unit discovered. Batanian archers, elf trained. Hidden unit tree unlocked. Recruitable. Batanian rangers. Requires elf friendship greater than or equal to 80. Batanian. Archers. My inner gamer nearly had a seizure. In the game, Batanian archers are the kings of ranged combat. Insane damage. And the community literally calls them Batanian sword saints because they're also monsters in melee. It's like ordering a pizza and finding out it comes with a free car. 20 longbows in the chest, each wrapped in silver vine patterns. Ethel pulled out an arrow with a spiral-grooved head. Silver pine special armor-piercing arrows. They'll punch through 3-finger-thick oak shields. She demonstrated by casually shooting an arrow into one of my hall's support pillars. The arrow buried itself, so deep the fletching was still vibrating. Weapon appraisal, elven longbow, superior. Armor piercing 30%. Range 20%. What's the price? I asked, trying not to drool. Simple. Stop Horn's logging. And, she paused, emerald eyes locking onto mine. Allow the Silver Pine clan to oversee iron mine operations. My eyebrow went up. Oversee? We won't touch your profits. But the mining can't severely damage nature. I had to physically restrain my smile. The system generates mines that don't need traditional support beams. Environmental damage? What environmental damage? My magical video game mines are basically surgery compared to normal mining. She was asking me to accept 20 elite bows, 200 armor-piercing arrows, access to the best archer unit in the game, and a mutual defense pact, in exchange for something that costs me literally nothing. Deal. But you train my archers too. Wise choice. She vanished into the shadows like morning fog, leaving only the faint scent of pine. Elves. Dramatic exits are apparently genetic. Next morning. War room. Map on the table. Royce, Galvin, and Edwin gathered around. That rat bastard. Galvin's fist hit the table so hard a candle fell over. Horn hired the orcs to attack us. Royce studied the red line on the map with cold, professional fury. He doesn't just want the iron mine. He wants all of Shuang territory. I nodded. The marriage proposal was Plan A, legal annexation. When I refused, his envoy rushed to the orc camp to trigger the attack. Plan B, but what can we do? Edwin wrung his hands. Greystone has 3 times our forces. Direct confrontation is suicide, which is why we won't fight directly. My finger tapped the map. Horn thinks both sides, us and the orcs, are destroyed. Right now, he's sitting in his castle thinking about how to profit from the carnage. I turned to Grash standing in the corner. How many Bloodscar warriors are left at the Iron Mine camp? 50. Old, wounded, and weak. His thick finger tapped the map. Gruul took all the elites. If I send you back with Gruul's war axe, will they follow you? Grash's eye narrowed. By tradition, whoever kills the chieftain rules the tribe. But I need the axe as proof. Edwin. Fetch the war axe from the wall. While Edwin left, I laid out the trap. Horn thinks we're crippled. He'll make his move soon. March his forces to clean up the remaining orcs and seize the iron mine. Collaborating with orcs to attack a noble house is high treason. Execution by hanging and total loss of title. I stared at the map with the kind of cold calculation that would have terrified the original owner of this body. Grash, take the axe, go reclaim your camp. Then spread the word. Snow Eagle Castle has fallen. Only 30 wounded orcs guarding the mine. Grash's fangs gleamed. You want us as bait? No. I want you as hunters. I pointed to a canyon on the map. Horn will take the shortest route. You ambush both sides. When his army enters the canyon, Grash grinned like a nightmare. Block the exits with rock slides. Then slaughter them all. This orc gets it. 3 days later. Bloodclaw Canyon. I stood in the shadows high above the canyon floor, watching Horn's 200 elite soldiers march straight into my trap like ants following a sugar trail. Horn himself rode a war horse, wearing gold-trimmed armor, iron gloves impatiently slapping his thigh. The picture of aristocratic arrogance. His deputy whispered, "Sir, just ahead." Scouts confirm only 30 wounded orcs and some women and children. Horn stroked his chin with that smug little noble smile. By the authority granted to me by His Majesty, I order the extermination of these barbarians threatening kingdom security. We are reclaiming a royal mineral vein. This is justice. Justice. He literally paid orcs to murder my family, and now he's giving speeches about justice. The audacity is almost impressive. His army reached the canyon center. An orc horn blast echoed off the walls. Boom. Boulders cascaded down both sides of the canyon. Exit? Sealed. Retreat? Gone. Horn's soldiers panicked. Horses screaming. Armor clanging. 200 men packed into a stone corridor with no way out. Hold formation. Defensive positions. Horn shrieked, his fat body trembling inside his fancy armor. They're just savage orcs. Then 30 archers wearing snow eagle cloaks appeared on the cliff edges above him. Me at the highest point, swaying hunting bow drawn to full. System troops. Imperial trained archers. Volley. Damage bonus 30%. High ground advantage. Horn's deputy raised his shield. An arrow punched through his throat. Blood sprayed across Horn's golden shoulder plate. It's the swaying. We've been tricked. Horn screamed so hard his voice cracked. Retreat. Retria. Boom. Another rock slide. System infantry had been pushing boulders from above. When Horn's forces were halved, I fired a whistling signal arrow. The orcs had been waiting. They charged down the slopes howling war cries, axes and spiked clubs smashing into what was left of Horn's so-called elite. For the Bloodscar tribe, Grash raised Gruul's massive war axe and cleaved Horn's battle flag, pole and all, in 2 pieces. When the last Greystone soldier fell, the canyon floor was painted red. Grash shoved Horn face first into the bloody gravel. Gold-plated armor caked in mud and worse. Please. Horn's teeth chattered like castanets. I'll pay ransom. Give you my territory. I took the war axe from Grash. Hefted it. Heavy. Collaborating with orcs to attack a noble house? I said quietly, voice dripping with irony. That's a charge I simply cannot afford to let slide. Horn's eyes went wide. He finally understood. No, wait. I can testify. I can. See you in the next life, Lord Horn. I nodded to Grash. Well done. Finish up here. Then pull your people back to the Iron Mine Camp. Battle summary. Bloodclaw Canyon annihilation. 213 elite soldiers killed. XP 2130. 15 knights killed. XP 1500. Perfect ambush bonus. XP x 1.5. Total XP 5445. Loot 3,200 dinars. 30 reinforced leather armors. 15 war horses. 500 grain. Level up to 4. Strength 15, Agility 13, Charisma 11. And then, upgrade time. My favorite part. The system's mount and blade troop tree unfurled in my vision like a beautiful Christmas catalog of violence. 20 recruits promoted to Imperial Infantry, basic formation skills, studded leather, proper shields. 15 infantry leveled to trained infantry, chainmail, reinforced shields, shield wall skill. 10 veterans became senior infantry, scale armor, and 3 javelins each. Pre-battle ranged harassment from your melee troops. Chef's kiss. 30 archers upgraded to senior archers, composite bows, armor-piercing arrows included. When the golden upgrade glow faded, my ragtag army of peasants and system soldiers had transformed into a real military force. Current dinar balance, 5,870. I started this adventure with 500 dinars and a hangover. Now I've got nearly 6,000, an elf alliance, a loyal orc warband, an iron mine, a dead enemy lord, 15 new horses, and an army that could actually hold formation without tripping over each other. The drunk in the wine cellar has left the building. The Starfaller is open for business. The iron ore in the Frost Whisper Mountains glowed dark red in the morning sun. I pressed my palm against the exposed vein like I was greeting an old friend made of money. System popped up. Red iron deposit, medium quality. 50 units per day. Need 20 miners. Development cost, 500 dinars. Build it, dinars, 53, 70, 48, 70. Close enough. The mine entrance expanded on its own. Wooden support beams grew out of the rock like trees on fast forward. Iron rails and minecarts materialized from thin air. The orc workers behind me went absolutely pale green, which is saying something since they're already green, clutching their tusk amulets and muttering prayers. Grash covered for me beautifully. This is the Shueying Lord's magic. This is Bloodscar's new home. Good boy, Grash. Employee of the month. Every month, the system gave me settlement options for the orcs. Choice 1, concentration camp style, high efficiency, tanked loyalty. Choice 2, self-governing village, slightly less efficient, but way happier orcs. I picked option 2. Happy workers don't stab you in your sleep. Basic management theory that apparently nobody in this medieval world has figured out yet. Round orc-style longhouses started assembling themselves nearby. Chimneys puffing smoke. Cozy, like a little green suburb. Ethel appeared beside me like a ghost. No footsteps. No sound. Not even a disturbed leaf. Elves don't walk. They just exist in different locations at different times. Your magic is unusual, she said carefully, examining the auto-constructed mine. It didn't damage the tree roots. Yeah, because my magic video game construction doesn't need to damage anything. The system builds infrastructure like a surgeon, not a bulldozer. This environmental compliance deal is the biggest free lunch in negotiation history, and Ethel has no idea. I pointed to a nearby hillside. How about we put the Silver Pine training ground there? Close enough for supplies, far enough for elven privacy. She nodded. I can train 20 archers per month. They must pass physical tests. Strength requirement, 12 or higher. Elf training camp established. Monthly output, 20 Batanian archers. Cost, 50 dinars per recruit. Batanian archers. On a subscription plan. Christmas every month. On the ride back to the castle, I pulled up the territory overview and immediately wished I hadn't. Total population, 5,000 humans across 3 villages, plus 354 orcs. Food reserves, 1,340 units, enough for 31 days. Winter approaching. Tax revenue, a pathetic 85 dinars per day because everyone's too poor and the trade routes are destroyed. North Village, 2,000 people, half the buildings burned, food shortage. South Village, 1,500 people, livestock decimated by disasters and orc raids. Creekwood Village, 1,200 people living on the forest edge, surviving but desperate for iron tools. My territory is basically a spreadsheet of sadness with a mining operation attached. Edwin cleared his throat. My lord, tradition dictates that a new lord must travel to the capital to swear fealty to the king. After we prepare for winter, I looked south toward the distant mountains. Any word from the capital? He produced a letter with a royal wax seal. Arrived this morning. His Majesty is deeply shocked by Horn's treason and requests your personal presence to explain. Deeply shocked. In air quotes. The king is about as shocked as a cat pretending it didn't knock the vase off the table. Politics is the same in every universe. Prepare horses and supplies. I leave in 3 days. 10 cavalry escort. Royce and Galvin stay behind to guard the castle. Royce thumped his chest. On my sword, not even a mouse will sneak in. I spent the last day inspecting everything. North Village fields being replanted. Blacksmith hammering away. At the training ground, elf instructors were adjusting recruits' bow stances with the patience of saints and the standards of drill sergeants. The system showed archery proficiency climbing in real time. At this rate, I'd have my first batch of Batanian archers by the time I returned from the capital. My inner gamer was doing backflips. Dawn of day 3. I rode out in fresh noble attire. Dark blue cloak with silver, swaying eagle embroidery. 10 cavalry in wedge formation behind me. Horse hooves crisp in the morning fog. Route options appeared. Option 1. Cut through the Black Forest. 10 days. 40% chance of bandits or wild animals. Option 2. Detour through River Valley Town. 13 days. Trading opportunities. Option 2. Obviously, my people need food more than I need to save 3 days. And River Valley Town is the biggest grain market in the north. The ride took us from barren hills to fertile plains. By noon on day 2, River Valley Town appeared on the horizon. Stone walls 10 meters high, a moat with a drawbridge that apparently never closes, and merchant caravans lined up at the gates like it was Black Friday. This town was disgustingly prosperous compared to my territory. I felt like a kid from a poor neighborhood visiting a rich cousin's mansion. The market was chaos in the best way. Southern traders selling silk and spices. Northern lords hawking furs and minerals. I left the cavalry at the town entrance and walked toward a grain shop with 2 guards. Then a commotion caught my ear. Explain the missing 30%. A well-dressed middle-aged merchant slammed an account book into a scrawny man's face. The little guy dropped to his knees in the mud. Sir, please. The spices got damp during transport and went moldy. The merchant drew a guard's sword and pressed it against the man's throat. I personally inspected the cargo hold. The waterproof canvas didn't have a single tear. Last chance. Where is my money? System notification floated up. Special character discovered. Marco Valandi. Profession: merchant, former spice caravan leader. Traits: sharp eye, fraud detection 25%, iron fist, subordinate loyalty 10%. Current status: dealing with embezzlement. Recruitable. The kneeling man cracked. It was Steward Jerome. He said if I faked the books, he'd give me 10%. Marco knocked him unconscious with the sword pommel before he could finish. Apologies for the spectacle. Marco wiped the blade with a handkerchief, then noticed my swaying crest. Tired bow. My lord, if you have orders, they'll have to wait until I clean house. I glanced at the scattered account books, covered in red circles marking discrepancies, and made my move. How long to recover the stolen funds? His pupils shrank. What do you mean, my lord? What's your entire caravan worth right now? I pointed at the convoy where several servants were quietly untying horses, trying to FLE with stolen goods. Including the traders. Marco spun around, saw the rats running, blew his emergency whistle, and laughed bitterly. Looks like I'm losing everything today, or gaining a new life. I held up a leather bag clinking with gold. I'll buy the whole caravan, debts included. You keep managing it. Shuaying territory needs a direct trade route to the capital. Marco stared at the gold coins. Then he kicked a fleeing trader so hard the man bounced. Deal. One condition: let me personally handle these parasites. Screams echoed from the cargo hold. I did not investigate. Plausible deniability is a lord's best friend. Acquired. Damaged caravan X1. Needs 12 pack horses. Gained. Hostile relationship with local smuggling ring. Unlocked hidden trait. Bloody reckoning. Embezzlement probability minus 90% for 3 months. 90% reduction in theft. Turns out the best anti-corruption policy is letting your new manager beat the corruption out of people with his bare hands. Marco emerged from the hold with bloody knuckles and a business proposal. Now then, my lord, allow me to present 3 plans for rebuilding the trade route. Walk with me to the grain shop first. Talk on the way. Inside the shop, a fat-faced grain merchant practically bounced over. My lord wants grain? Finest spring wheat. Flour white as snow. Only 5 coppers per pound. The system auto-converted the currency. 1 gold equals 10 silver equals 1,000 copper. 1 denar equals 1 silver. I need at least 20,000 pounds to feed my territory for 3 months. Marco took one look at the merchant's smile and whispered, My lord, this blob is overcharging by at least 50%. Marco's trade activated. Fraud detection. Real prices. Black bread 0.8 copper/pound. Wheat grain 3.2 copper/pound. 50% markup. This guy saw a young lord with a fancy cloak and thought, payday. I tapped the counter. New price. The fat man's cheeks jiggled. Well, you see, the trade routes have been unsafe lately. I have grain price records from all 7 northern towns. Marco whipped out a ledger from nowhere. Last month's River Valley town records show black bread averaged 0.75 copper per pound. Sweat beaded on the merchant's forehead. My lords, really. 7 sets of reinforced leather armor for 20,000 pounds of grain. I slapped the deal down. At market rate, you still owe me 15 silver. Marco added the finishing blow, or throw in 30 bags of coarse salt. I noticed the sea salt piled up in your backyard. The fat man looked like he wanted to cry. We walked out with all the grain and the salt at basically half the original quote. Marco Valandi Loyalty 5. Gain Trait. Penny Pincher, daily expenses minus 10%. My lord, Marco wiped his forehead and pointed toward the shimmering Blackwater River. I suggest river transport. 3 flatboats ready by tomorrow, 5 days to Shuang territory. Half the time of overland travel. Winter water levels? The Blackwater never freezes through the Frost Whisper Gorge section. And our iron mine is right at the upstream bend. His finger traced an arc on an invisible map. I've already contacted old Captain COR. His fleet handles or shipments year-round. Already making contacts. Already planning logistics. This man has been my employee for 40 minutes, and he's already outperforming everyone except maybe Galvin's ability to yell at people. I hired a merchant by buying his entire collapsing business, got enough grain to survive winter, discovered river transport to my doorstep, and saved half my shopping budget. All in one afternoon at a farmer's market. Back home, my territory is growing an orc suburb, an elf archery school, and an iron mine that builds itself. I came to this world as a drunk. Now I'm running a startup kingdom. The Starfaller's portfolio is diversifying, baby. The royal throne room smelled like burning pine resin and politics. King Augustus VII sat on an iron throne looking like he'd been chewing wasps for breakfast. Old, sharp, and radiating the kind of energy that makes grown men forget how their knees work. Horn Greystone is dead, the king announced. His head is on a gate spike. His territory has no heir. He held up a scroll with elf moonlight seals and orc testimony. Examined it. His lip twitched, the royal equivalent of laughing. The elf's silver pine seal is authentic, and elves are too arrogant to lie. He slammed the scroll on the armrest. That idiot Horn conspired with orcs to attack a noble house, then got himself killed, and now orcs are flooding through his undefended territory raiding everything. I have never seen a more stupid nobleman in my entire reign. The king's eyes swept the room like searchlights. Which of you fine lords would like to take over Greystone territory for the kingdom? Silence. Absolute, beautiful, cowardly silence. Every noble in the room suddenly became fascinated by anything that wasn't the king's face. One count started adjusting his sash. Another developed a passionate interest in a wall tapestry he'd walked past 1,000 times. Jeweled shoes shuffled backward. Border lords literally hid behind pillars. And honestly, I understood why. Greystone territory was a nightmare gift basket. Frozen wasteland on the edge of the Frost Whisper Mountains where the wind cracks stone. Sitting directly on the Orc Invasion Highway. Every autumn, green raiders pour through like a seasonal subscription to violence. 3 Greystone knights had lost their heads to orcs in the past decade. Skulls displayed on border towers as interior decorating. Taking that territory meant rebuilding destroyed fortifications, calming panicked farmers, and permanently funding an army to fight orcs, all for basically zero financial return. These perfumed lords would rather eat their own boots. Your Majesty, the sable count polished his gold spectacles. Such a critical military position should really be given to someone familiar with northern warfare. Translation, not me. Anyone but me. Everyone nodded enthusiastically while avoiding eye contact with the king like he was handing out homework. This was my moment. Your Majesty, I stepped forward, voice steady. The Bloodscar tribe has sworn allegiance to House Shuang under the ancient covenant. I deliberately raised my volume, so every hiding noble could hear clearly. According to Chapter 7 of the St. Eller's Codex, one who subjugates a foreign tribe may inherit their war banner and territory. Chapter 7. The law that was used a century ago when holy knights conquered the mountain dwarfs. Nobody had cited it in almost 100 years. I pulled it out like a vintage wine from a dusty cellar. The old king's eyebrows went up. Interesting. He stroked his scepter, eyes scanning the cowering nobles. It seems none of you have the courage of this young man. He turned to me. Do you know what taking Greystone means? It means 30 more miles of border to defend every year. It means when orc war drums sound, the Shuang banner must be the first one raised. It means my soldiers will chew frozen black bread while standing in knee-deep blizzards guarding the frontier. Dead. Silence. You could hear the pine logs crackling. The king laughed. Full, booming laughter that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Yes, this is the kind of lord my Anter kingdom needs. He shot to his feet. Effective immediately, the Greystone title is abolished. Its territory falls under Shuang's stewardship. Then he turned and pulled something from a velvet sword case held by an attendant. A two-handed greatsword. The blade was completely black except for the razor edge, which gleamed like trapped moonlight. Ancient runes carved along the spine. This is the Winter's Oath. The king's voice went deep and ceremonial. Given to the guardian of the North 200 years ago, he turned the blade. Silver arc in the firelight. Today, I give it to you. I dropped to one knee. The blade touched my right shoulder. By iron and blood, I, Augustus VII, King of Antur, name you Baron of Frostwhisper, grant you dominion over the Greystone territory, and, the blade pressed down slightly, the mission to purge the northern orcs. Blade lifted. Left shoulder. Your sword swings for the kingdom. Your blood flows for the kingdom. Sword tip touched my forehead. Now rise, Baron Shuiying. Take your sword and fulfill your oath. Quest updated. Royal decree. Clear orc tribes from Frostwhisper Mountains, January 3rd. Rebuild northern trade routes, 1/4. Annual tribute, 20% of iron mine revenue. 20%. The king just taxed my mine before I've even dug properly. Monarchy is basically a protection racket with fancier hats. But still, I walked in as a broke heir and walked out as a baron with 2 territories, a legendary sword, and a royal mandate to kick orc teeth in. Not bad for a guy who was unconscious under a wine barrel last week. 3 days after the ceremony, I was in the capital's blacksmith district with 23 sets of captured armor stacked on a cart. A dwarf blacksmith named Grom Iron Anvil, because every dwarf blacksmith is named something like that, knocked on a breastplate with his knuckles. Shuiying kid, these iron chunks are too shabby for goblins to wear. I kicked the bottom set, the one with Horn's personal guard crest. This one's made from Black Water Valley steel. Grom's eyes lit up. He flipped open the armor, fingers tracing the bloodstains on the lining. Huh. I knew I smelled something familiar. He shoved his nose into the armor and took a deep sniff. Blackwater Valley iron has sulfur mixed in. Smells like rotten eggs when you forge it. This dwarf just sniffed armor to identify the ore source. Dwarves are built different. 15 gold coins. Final offer. 23 sets. Bulk deal. I held up 2 fingers. Or 20 gold coins and throw in that apprentice who's drinking your beer. Crash. A wine barrel toppled inside the shop. A soot-covered young dwarf stumbled out with a half-empty flask still dangling from his belt. Master, I didn't mean to. Grundon, you're drinking my ale again. Grom's roar made every piece of hanging metalwork ring like wind chimes in a hurricane. Seems like my new smithy needs a taste tester, I offered casually. 15 minutes later, my carriage had a new passenger, a dwarf apprentice riding a goat, clutching a wine flask and mumbling, "At least let me grab my tools." I got a blacksmith, 20 gold coins, and the entertainment value of watching a master dwarf try not to cry as his beer-thieving student rode away on livestock. Worth it. As my carriage rolled through the capital gates, a pack of fancy noble boys came trotting back from a hunting trip. Gold silk coats, decorative rapiers that had never seen real combat, a few pathetic rabbits dangling from their saddles. Well, look who it is. Our new Baron Shuiying. The leader, some Durlin family pretty boy with flowing golden hair, dragged out my title like it was a joke. I hear even goblins on his territory need 3 layers of fur to go outside. His friends exploded with exaggerated laughter. One pinched his nose and fanned himself with a silk handkerchief. I bet the feasts at Snow Eagle Castle feature frozen potatoes and 10-year-old pickled orc meat. The system pulled up their profiles instantly. Minor noble heirs from rich southern territories. The kind of boys whose daddies paid special donations to the crown so their precious sons could party in the capital instead of serving on the frontier. Young Durlin, I said with a cold smile. I heard your father paid 300 gold dragons to redeem you from the border regiment. Tell me, do you still dream about those winter nights at Northwind Fortress? The ones where soldiers lost their toes to frostbite. His face went white. Paper white. His grip on the reins went so tight his knuckles matched. He definitely remembered those frozen nights. My carriage rolled on, leaving their sputtering curses in the dust. Grundon chugged his ale and slurred. What gives those soft-bellied slugs the right to look down on U.S. Northerners? I gripped the hilt of Winter's Oath. The leather wrapping creaked under my fingers. Because all they see is the capital's music and dancing. My eyes found the mountain silhouettes on the northern horizon. They don't understand that it's northern iron and blood that lets the royal banquet hall smell like honeyed wine and perfume instead of orc campfires. 2 territories. A legendary sword. An elf alliance. An orc warband. A merchant, a dwarf, and a one-eyed maniac. Baron Shuiying is heading home. And winter is coming. But for the first time, winter should be afraid of me. My breath came out in white clouds as I looked back at the convoy. 2 carts loaded like Christmas sleighs grinding through fresh snow. Drivers bundled in fur cloaks whipping exhausted horses. 10 light cavalry split front and rear on guard duty. And Grundon, my newly acquired dwarf, curled up on the biggest cart hugging his wine flask like a teddy bear, asleep. His goat was tied to the back of the cart, casually munching dead grass like this was a vacation. The cargo situation was interesting. Cart 1, professional dwarf anvil, full forging toolkit, and a collapsible bellows furnace taking up half the space. Cart 2, quenching oil, grinding stones, and 2 barrels of ale that Grundon had, absolutely needed for maintaining smithing quality. His words, delivered with a straight face. While already drunk. Pick up the pace, I called out. We need to reach Creekwood Village before dark. My lord, smoke ahead. The lead rider pointed toward the forest edge. I squinted. The system map zoomed in automatically. A small settlement outline appeared. But instead of a village name, the marker was flashing, refugee camp. We rode closer. 20-something shacks made of branches and torn rags crammed into a forest clearing. Skinny children stirring a big pot over a fire. I looked into that pot and almost cried. The soup was so thin you could use it as a mirror. A few grains of wheat and some tree bark bobbing around in hot water. That's not food. That's a warm apology. Discoverable population, 87 refugees. Available labor, 32. An old man with a walking stick limped toward us. Frostbitten face. Eyes full of desperate hope. My lord, we just need a place to survive the winter. Where are you from? Mill Village, Greystone Territory. He coughed like his lungs were trying to escape. Orcs burned everything. After Lord Horn died, nobody cared about us, Horn's people. The territory I just inherited. These are MY citizens now, and they're eating tree bark soup in the snow. I dismounted. Boots sank deep into mud. I'm Richard Shuiying, the new lord of Greystone Territory. The old man's cloudy eyes went wide. Coughing fit. Why you mean? From the Frostwhisper Mountains to the Blackwater River. It's all mine now. I showed him the new Greystone seal on my sword scabbard. Let my gaze sweep across every gaunt face peeking out of those pathetic shelters. As your lord, it's my duty to take care of my people. A woman missing her front teeth spoke up nervously. Then, Mill Village will be rebuilt. But winter comes first. You'll be resettled at Creekwood Village. Real houses, firewood, food. Everyone who works eats well. Elderly and children get priority care, my lord. Is this true? Lord Horn never. I'm not Horn. That shut the comparisons down fast. The Shuiying family keeps its word. I signaled the cavalry. Grain bags opened. Bread distributed. Feed the old and young first. Pack up by dark. I'm taking you home. The old man dropped to his knees. I pulled him back up and handed him bread personally. Kneeling in snow at his age would kill him faster than starvation. We absorbed 87 people into an already slow convoy. Our pace went from cautious to arthritic snail, and that's when the system decided to ruin my evening. Scout alert. Frostwhisper wolf pack, 20 to 30 wolves. Distance, 1.5 kilometers, approaching. I pulled up the system map overhead view. 20-plus red dots moving through the western forest in a hunting formation. Flanking us. Surrounding us. Driven by winter hunger and the smell of horses. Quick system check. Current dinars, 1,370. Warning, not within human settlement range. Cannot summon troops. Can't summon reinforcements. No backup button. Just me, 10 cavalrymen, some refugee hunters, and a drunk dwarf against 30 hungry wolves. Wonderful. Wolves incoming. Everyone to the carts. Old people and children I in the middle. Cavalry snapped into defensive formation, spears out. The hunters among the refugees grabbed their bows. Everyone else held torches and whatever they could swing. Grundon sobered up in approximately 0.3 seconds. He vaulted off the cart, iron hammer spinning in his hand in a beautiful arc. Damn winter wolves. Knew they'd show up. Green eyes appeared in the darkening tree line. Pairs of them. Lots of them. Low howls echoing from every direction. I drew the swaying hunting bow. Deep breath. Cold air sharpened my brain like a whetstone. A gray head poked out from the bushes. I released. Arrow through the throat. Wolf down. The pack surged. 3 wolves from 3 different directions, all at once. Triple shot. 3 arrows, practically simultaneous. 3 wolves, 3 hits, 3 corpses hitting snow. By the gods, a refugee hunter stared with his jaw on the floor. That archery. Grundon smashed a lunging wolf skull with his hammer and laughed. Now we're talking, but my eyes were already locked on the real problem. A massive white wolf lurking behind the pack, bigger than the rest by a full head, directing the others like a furry general. Elite unit, Frost Whisper White Wolf, Alpha. A boss fight. In the snow, against a wolf with tactics. I pulled an armor-piercing arrow from my belt. Eat this. The white wolf dodged sideways, fast, but the arrow still clipped its front leg. Blood sprayed across pristine snow like red paint on a white canvas. It howled, but instead of running, its hackles went up, spine arched, every fang on display. This thing was angry, not scared. Then it did something that made me genuinely respect a 4-legged animal. It feinted left. I released my arrow at the left dodge. It instantly reversed right. Arrow sailed through empty fur. Smart little monster, I muttered. Fine. 2 can play mind games. I deliberately slowed my movements. Made myself look like an easy target. Come closer. Come closer. The white wolf took the bait. It launched, airborne, jaws wide open, death on 4 legs flying at my face. Exactly what I wanted. Lightning draw. 3rd arrow. Straight into its open mouth and out through the back of its neck. Alpha kill. Wolf pack morale. Collapsed. Obtained. Perfect white wolf pelt X1. Rare. The remaining wolves scattered into the forest like their boss didn't just die mid-flight with an arrow as a tongue piercing. Grundon crushed the last straggler and roared with delight. Dwarves and violence. Name a more iconic duo. Strip the pelts, I told the hunters. Make winter clothes for the children. I paused, looking at the refugees staring hungrily at the wolf carcasses. And the meat? Tonight we feast. Obtained. Quality wolf pelts X15. Fresh wolf meat X 800 pounds. Achievement unlocked. Frost Whisper Hunter. Damage versus beasts 10%. 87 refugees who were eating tree bark soup this morning were about to have a wolf barbecue for dinner. Life comes at you fast when you travel with the Starfaller. Move out. Creekwood Village before dark. The sun was painting everything gold when we finally spotted the village fence. Villagers rushed out with torches. The old village chief recognized my crest and nearly collapsed. Baron, thank the gods you're safe. I helped him up. These refugees need housing. Open the granary. Tonight, everyone eats well. 2 territories. A legendary sword. 87 new citizens. 15 wolf pelts. 800 pounds of meat. A dwarf blacksmith who's already sneaking ill again. And I shot a wolf through its open mouth while it was flying at my face. Just another Tuesday in the life of Baron Shuiying. Campfire light. Wolf meat sizzling. Kids with actual color in their cheeks for the first time in who knows how long. For about 5 minutes, everything felt almost peaceful. Then the village chief hobbled over to ruin the mood. My lord, all these extra mouths. We won't last until spring. I pointed at the system map's new logging markers. Tomorrow, everyone who can work splits into 3 groups. 1 expands the village. 1 cuts timber up north. 1 comes with me to clear the road to the iron mine. But the orcs, the Bloodscar tribe works for me now. Grash will send warriors to protect the logging teams. The old man's eyes nearly fell out of his head. Work. With ORCS. Better than starving to death in January. Trust me. He did not look like he trusted me. But he also didn't have a better plan, so here we are. I spent the night reviewing system data alone. Productive. Peaceful. Almost relaxing. Then dawn happened. Bang 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 on my door. My lord. Emergency. A cavalryman. Face white as the snow outside. Patrol found massive orc tracks at the Black Forest edge. At least 200, coming from Greystone direction. I shot upright. System map unfurled automatically. Red dots. Lots of red dots. Pouring out of the forest from the Greystone side. Scout alert. Bloodspear tribe raiders, 200. Threat level, high. Direction, Creekwood Village. A different orc tribe. Not my Bloodscar boys. a whole separate crew called the Bloodspear tribe, and they're headed straight for this village full of refugees, children, and one very stressed baron. Damn it, this is what happens when you inherit a dead trader's territory. All the problems transfer with the deed. Thanks, Horn. Even dead, you're still ruining my life. Quick decisions. No time for panic. Light the signal fires. Get castle reinforcements moving. Gather all villagers for defense. Cavalry on the flanks. Hunters to high ground. Send the fastest rider to the iron mine. Tell Grash to bring warriors now. The village chief stumbled toward me shaking like a leaf. My lord, we can't evacuate in time. We're not evacuating. I cracked a cold smile. We're finishing this here. Then I did something financially irresponsible. System. Recruit 50 Imperial Infantry. 30 Imperial Archers. Cost. 50 by 40 30 times 30 is equal to 2,900 dinars. Current dinars, 1,370. Debt, 1,530. Daily interest, 5%. Warning, soldiers lose 2 morale per day while in debt. I just took out a high-interest loan from a video game system to pay for an army. I'm being charged 5% daily on imaginary medieval currency. I'm pretty sure this violates the Geneva Convention of Game Design. Where's the Consumer Protection Bureau for Isekai protagonists? But 50 armored infantry and 30 archers materialized at the village entrance. Studded leather. Longbows. Battle ready. Villagers dropped to their knees. The gods have answered, sure. The gods. And also my credit score, which is now in the negative. Infantry. Block the village entrance. Archers. Arrow towers now. I climbed the windmill roof. Best vantage point in town. The orc army was crossing the frozen river like a dark green flood. Front runners wearing stolen iron armor, swinging axes and spiked clubs. Behind them more and more. 200 angry orcs charging a wooden village defended by troops I bought on a payday loan. Archers ready. I drew the swaying hunting bow. Target the unarmored ones. System aim assist flickered on. First orc scout entered range. Arrow released. Clean throat shot. Dead before it hit the ground. Didn't even get to scream. First blood. Morale 5. The Imperial archers fired a volley. Arrow rain covered the orc vanguard. But these weren't soft targets. Only a handful dropped. The armored ones kept coming like green freight trains. Brief chaos in the orc ranks. They reorganized in seconds and resumed the charge. The wooden village wall shook under their impact like a fence in a hurricane. I focused on elite targets. Every arrow found exposed eyes or throats. The system aim assist was working overtime, and my archery proficiency was earning its keep. But there were too many. The wall finally broke. A huge section just caved in. Green warriors poured through the gap, screaming war cries, crashing directly into my infantry line. Shield wall, 30 infantry locked shields. The impact was like a car crash in slow motion. Metal on metal, bodies slamming, grunts and roars. Cavalry, flank charge. My 10 light cavalry burst from the side at full gallop, lances leveled. The charge bonus turned these lightly equipped horsemen into missiles. Lances punched through orc chests. Archers kept firing into the chaos, picking off targets of opportunity. But the battle turned into a grinder. Here's the ugly truth. My infantry are only tier 2. Their leather armor might as well be paper against orc war axes. The archers' hunting bows couldn't reliably penetrate armored orcs. I was fielding a budget army against a premium threat, and the math was not in my favor. Hold the line, I screamed from the rooftop. Keep the shield wall. 40 infantry formed a wall like a dam, trying to hold back the ocean. Cracking, buckling, barely holding. I locked my aim assist on a roaring orc commander. Arrow through a helmet gap. He dropped like a sack of green potatoes. More orcs climbed over his body without slowing down. These guys treat their dead like stepping stones. Zero respect. Maximum efficiency. My lord. East side breach. I spun. 5 or 6 orcs had punched through the line. 2 militia heads went flying, literally airborne, from axe swings. 3 arrows. 3 orcs. Instant response. But I was playing whack-a-mole with a bow against a 200-creature army, and the moles had war axes. Then an absolutely massive orc reached the windmill base and buried his axe into the support beam. The entire building shook. I nearly fell off the roof. This thing was trying to chop down my sniper tower while I was still on it. It grinned up at me with a face only a mother orc could love. Raised the axe for another swing. One more hit, and I'd be riding the building down like a collapsing Jenga tower. Thwip. A silver flash. The orc froze mid-swing. An arrow wrapped in ivy was sticking out of its throat. I know that arrow. It seems you need help, human. That cold, elegant voice from the village entrance. Silver hair catching the firelight. Emerald eyes gleaming with the kind of superiority that only elves can pull off. Ethel. And if she's here, the Silver Pine Cavalry isn't far behind. I've never been so happy to see a condescending immortal in my entire existence across 2 worlds. The loan sharks are at my door, my building is collapsing, my army is crumbling. I'm 200 orcs deep in a fight I can barely afford, and the elves just showed up like the most beautiful, judgmental reinforcements in military history. I'll take the smugness. I'll take all the smugness. Just keep shooting. Ethel strolled in with 20 Battanian archers like she was arriving fashionably late to a dinner party instead of a war zone. These Battanian warriors moved like one organism. Every arrow found a target. One orc commander in full plate armor raised his axe to rally a charge. 3 arrows hit his neck, armpit, and back of the knee simultaneously. He dropped like someone unplugged him. Ethel hopped onto the rooftop next to me with the grace of a cat who thinks it's better than you. Her emerald eyes swept the battlefield like she was reviewing a mildly disappointing restaurant. The swaying lord seems to enjoy putting himself in dangerous situations. She drew her bow. One silver glowing arrow pierced through 2 orc skulls in a single shot. A twofer. Show off. I put an arrow through a sneaking orc's throat and asked, "How'd you get here so fast?" I was bringing the Battanian archers through the forest for a field training. Exercise. She saved a militiaman's life mid-sentence without even pausing. Live combat is more educational than target practice. She brought her elite death squad into my battle as a training exercise. For them, this is a pop quiz. I'm fighting for survival, and they're doing homework. Then, a deep horn blast from the north. System map lit up with green dots. Friendly green dots. It's Grash, a cavalryman shouted. Orc reinforcements. The villagers went pale with terror, 50 armed orcs charging toward the village. But instead of attacking humans, these orcs slammed into the Bloodspear raiders like a green wrecking ball hitting a green wall. Grash led the charge with Gruul's massive war axe spinning silver arcs. 2 raider skulls split open in his first swing. For the swaying lord, he roared in broken human language. Bloodscar warriors joined battle. Human soldier morale 15. The invading orcs absolutely did not expect to get betrayed by their own species. Their formation shattered like cheap glass. All forces, charge. Drive them out. Infantry shield wall pushed forward. Cavalry swept both flanks. Battanian archers maintained a constant rain of death from above. Grash's warriors cut straight into the enemy's center like a knife into butter. The tide turned. And then came the moment that made me cackle out loud. A group of Bloodspear orcs broke through the arrow barrage. Big grins. Charging straight at the Battanian archers. Easy pickings, right? Lightly armored bow users? Free kills? Wrong. So wrong. The front row of Battanian warriors stowed their bows and drew swords in one fluid motion. 10 two-handed greatswords appeared like a magic trick. The lead orc didn't even register what happened before a Battanian warrior sidestepped his charge and split his chest open with a backhand slash. Another orc swung an axe. The Battanian blocked it casually, then flicked the blade and took the orc's head clean off. Ha 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 ha. I couldn't help myself. Dio, you know what a Battanian sword saint is? Grash stood next to me watching these archers butcher orcs in melee combat like they were slicing vegetables. His thick green finger pointed at the carnage. Are they archers or berserkers? Ethel elegantly twirled her sword, skewered the last orc rushing her through the throat, and said with zero emotion, "In the Silver Pine clan, we call it well-rounded education." I patted Grash on the shoulder. "Next time, remind your people, don't mess with archers carrying greatswords." Grash scratched his head. "I think I'll stay far away from them." The battle became a one-sided slaughter. Trapped between my infantry, Grash's warriors, and 20 Battanian murder machines, the Bloodspear raiders collapsed. Some threw down weapons and ran. Elf arrows pinned them to the ground. Others went berserk and attacked everything, got cut down instantly. I switched to the system's orc language translator. Surrender and live. The first orc dropped his axe and knelt. Chain reaction. 60-something survivors hit the ground within seconds. Peer pressure works across all species. I surveyed the battlefield. Bodies everywhere. XP counter going crazy. Troop proficiency through the roof. Clean up. Tonight we feast. Villagers cheered. The Batanian warriors calmly sheathed their swords, slung their bows back on, and looked around like they'd just finished a light jog. The orc massacre was apparently below their excitement threshold. That evening, the most unlikely dinner party in this world's history. Humans, orcs, and elves sitting around the same campfires, sharing roasted meat and ale. Three species that would normally try to murder each other, passing bread across the table. I sat by the fire watching the most beautiful thing in any RPG, the recovery screen. My system troops had a broken ability. As long as they didn't die on the battlefield, they healed at supernatural speed. Wounds closed visibly. Broken bones reset themselves. A soldier who got his chest armor split by a war axe 2 hours ago was sitting up drinking soup and enthusiastically reenacting the fight for his buddies. 2 hours ago, he was basically dead. Now he's doing interpretive theater. Royce watched a nearly deceased soldier stand up and start stretching. It's like they're blessed by the war god himself. If they're not dead, they can fight again. I shrugged like this was completely normal and not a physics-breaking cheat code. Normal armies need weeks to recover after a battle. Mine needs a NAP. This alone made continuous warfare possible in ways that would make any military strategist weep with envy. Current forces: Imperial Infantry, 45 total, 42 healthy, 3 wounded, recovery, 12 hours. Imperial Archers, 20 total, 18 healthy, 2 wounded, recovery, 8 hours. Imperial Cavalry, 10 total, 8 healthy, 2 wounded, recovery, 8 hours. Batanian Archers, 20 total, 20 healthy, 20 Batanians, and 0 injuries. They went through an entire battle without getting scratched. These units are broken, and I love them. I stood up and started giving orders. Grash, take your warriors back to the iron mine at dawn. Lock that place down. The mine will not fall. Chest thump. Royce, leave 5 cavalry and 10 infantry here with the village militia. Wounded soldiers joined the garrison after recovery. The village chief was practically vibrating with relief. My lord, with these warriors staying, we can finally sleep at night. Your people need to learn to fight too. All males 16 and up, combat training every 3 days. Ethel leaned against an oak tree, silver hair catching firelight. You're using these soldiers as seeds. 1 wheat seed buys a handful of grain. I watched the village's defense rating jump from weak to solid on the system. Map. Next time raiders come to any of my villages, they'll find iron hedgehogs instead of soft targets. Ethel glanced at the wounded soldiers who were already walking around. Their recovery speed is remarkable. Ancient Shuang family medical techniques. Humans only, delivered with a straight face. The lie I keep recycling because nobody can prove otherwise. In the corner, a soldier whose chest plate had been cleaved open was sitting up demonstrating combat moves to his friends. 2 hours ago he was bleeding out. Now he's teaching a MESDRCLASS. The village chief brought honey mead with worried eyes. My lord, those green. I mean, the new residents, they won't. They're not the same as the raiders. Your hunters and mountain bandits both walk on 2 legs. Are they the same? Fair point. He accepted it with a nod and a long swig of mead. Before the fires died down, I gathered my escort and headed back towards Snow Eagle Castle. Couldn't afford to stay. Too much to manage. Too many threats incoming. My lord, captured orc equipment is loaded. The cavalry captain reported. 10 intact iron armor sets stored separately as ordered. I nodded. System upgrade screen popped up like a taunt. Available upgrades. Infantry trained infantry, 35 units. Archers trained archers, 20 units. Cavalry heavy cavalry, 10 units. Batanian warriors Batanian heroes, 20 units. You do not have enough dinars. Thanks. Thanks for reminding me. I'm still in debt from summoning those emergency troops. The system charges interest. I owe money to a game mechanic. This is financial rock bottom across 2 dimensions. Grundon trotted up on his goat, smelling like ale and rust. My lord, those busted iron armors. Melt them down, and I could forge 50 premium logging axes. No. Sell them to the southern merchant caravans. We need cash flow. The dwarf's eyes went wide. But that's quality steel, and we need food and cloth. The territory still has a 30% supply deficit. His face crumpled like I'd told him we were throwing gold into a river. To a dwarf, selling good steel is basically a war crime. But the Starfaller doesn't run on pride. The Starfaller runs on logistics. And right now, logistics says sell the armor, buy the grain, pay the debt, and pray the next orc tribe waits until my credit score recovers. Humans, orcs, elves, Botanian sword saints, a drunk dwarf on a goat, a system that charges me interest. This kingdom-building adventure is the most stressful video game I've ever played. And I can't even pause. Snow Eagle Castle appeared on the horizon, and I immediately noticed more guards on the walls than when I left. New crossbow turrets. Fresh flags. Looks like Royce didn't sit around. The gates rumbled open. Soldiers lined up to greet me like I was returning from war, which, technically, I was. Twice. In the same trip, Royce marched down the steps. The man had lost weight. His eye sockets looked like caves, but his gaze could cut steel. He'd been running this place on zero sleep and maximum intensity. Welcome home, my lord. Wall reinforcements completed yesterday. I patted his shoulder. Good work. War room in 1 hour. The war room had gotten an upgrade while I was gone. Fireplace crackling. Maps pinned to the table with iron nails. Resource markers everywhere. It looked like an actual command center instead of a room where a drunk used to cry into his wine. Finances first, I nodded at Edwin. The old butler unrolled a scroll with fresh ink. My lord, over 3 weeks, the iron mine has produced steady revenue at 2 gold coins daily. The smithy under Grundon has forged. Numbers. Just numbers. Total income, 420 gold. Expenses, 310 gold. Balance, 110 gold. His bony finger tapped the military spending line. Mainly crossbow installations and north wall reinforcement. My system showed 2,620 dinars. Edwin hadn't counted the orc gear I sold on the road. Nice little surplus hiding in my pocket. Food reserves? 3 months' worth. But with winter approaching, plan for worst case. I turned to Royce. Defenses. The iron tower of a man walked to the sand table like he was about to deliver a TED Talk on murder logistics. Walls repaired. 2 new arrow towers. Pointer stick moving across the castle model. Moat cleared and lined with sharpened stakes at the bottom. I noticed little red flags on the sand table. Those? 3-tier defense system. His stick pointed to the mountain passes. Layer 1. Forward outposts manned by Grashas, orc warriors. Any movement triggers signal fires. Stick moved to the outer perimeter. Layer 2. Village joint defense network. Each village has 30 trained militia commanded by 2 cavalry riders. Stick tapped the castle. Layer 3. The castle itself. New arrow towers and a barbican. Royce built a defense-in-depth system while I was away. This man deserves a raise. Multiple raises. All the raises. Casualties? 8 dead, 15 seriously wounded over 2 weeks. All wounded have recovered to combat readiness. 8 dead in 2 weeks on a border territory under constant orc threat. That casualty rate was practically a miracle, and we both knew the system's supernatural healing was the reason. Normal armies would have lost triple that. Orc activity. Galvin grabbed a cup and drained it in one gulp. Iron Mine Camp repelled an attack yesterday. Bloodscar warriors performed well. Maybe too well. Royce cleared his throat. They mounted the raiders' heads on fence posts. The new refugees are afraid to go near the mining area. My mouth twitched. Orc traditional intimidation tactics. Effective? Absolutely. Good for community relations? Not even slightly. Tell Grash to bury the trophies next time. I turned to Marco. Trade routes? My new commerce officer pulled out a leather ledger like it was a holy book. 3 trade routes established. Most profitable, southbound iron goods. The Greystone iron quality is even better than expected. Eyebrow up. Greystone iron? Yes, my lord. Marco's eyes sparkled with merchant greed. Per the royal decree, you now have legal authority over all of Horn's territory. I sent scouts, 6 mine shafts, 3 still operational. The system map expanded. Greystone territory lit up with 6 ore deposits marked clear as day. One was labeled refined iron ore, worth 3 times normal iron. Horn, you miserable traitor, you accidentally left me a gold mine. Well, iron mine. Same energy. Minor situation, Marco lowered his voice. Mostly slaves, war prisoners, and debt farmers. Roughly 200 people, 200 trained miners. Skilled labor handed to me on a platter. But slavery? No. Aside from being morally disgusting, slaves work terribly. Whip people mind slow. Motivated people mind fast. Basic economics that every fantasy villain somehow misses. Prepare a carriage. We leave for Greystone at dawn. Royce, 20 cavalry escort. Marco, draft a minor liberation plan. Most generous, my lord. Marco bowed, then hesitated. But freeing 200 slaves overnight might cause unrest. Already thought of that. Announce all slaves are converted to contract workers. 5-year term. Wages based on output. After 5 years, freedom and a small plot of land. Marco's eyes ignited. Brilliant. Stability and productivity in one stroke. His quill was scratching the ledger before I finished speaking. I'll prepare the contracts immediately. Dawn ride. Clean formation. 20 cavalry. Greystone Fortress appeared in the afternoon sun. Bigger than Snow Eagle Castle. Blood still staining the walls. Arrow towers visibly damaged. Orcs hit this place too, Royce noted, studying the scarring on the walls. We stopped at the drawbridge. Gates shut. Shadows moving on the walls. Open up, Royce bellowed. By royal decree, Baron Schwang is here to assume control of this territory. Silence. Long, awkward silence. The kind where you can hear your horse breathing. Finally, a scratchy voice from above. Proof? Royce held up the royally sealed parchment like he was showing a hall pass to a suspicious teacher. The gates groaned open. A hunched old man shuffled out with a few guards. I am Casper, steward of Greystone Fortress. He examined me with the suspicion of someone who's been lied to professionally for decades. Since Lord Horn's death, I've kept the castle running. He inspected the royal seal, hands trembling. It's authentic. He returned the document. Voice like sandpaper on sandpaper. Follow me, my lord. Take me to the treasury. No small talk. No tour. Money first. A flicker of panic crossed Casper's eyes. Gone in a blink. Too slow, old man. I caught it. My lord, you must be tired from traveling. Perhaps rest first. Now, he swallowed hard. This way, my lord. Through dark corridors. Down into the cellar. 3 iron doors, 3 keys, maximum dramatic buildup. The last door swung open and empty. The treasury was a sad, echoing cave with a few pathetic coin bags in the corner. A room designed for wealth, containing approximately nothing. This is Horn's treasury? Royce stared like someone had replaced his steak with a napkin. Casper's throat bobbed. Lord Horn lived rather extravagantly. Sure he did. Extravagant is one word for it. Corrupt money-laundering trader who hid his real wealth is a more accurate phrase. I smiled coldly, because the system map was showing something Casper clearly didn't want me to find, a hidden passage behind the west wall. I walked straight to the wall and started tapping stones with my fingertips. Tap, tap, each knock making Casper's face lose another shade of color. My lord, what are you? Oh, Casper. Poor, sweaty, nervous Casper. Did you really think you could hide the real treasury from a guy with a cheat code X-ray map built into his brain? Let's see what's behind door number 4. I punched a stone brick in the wall. Not because I was angry, because the system map told me it was a secret button. Click. Grinding gears. The entire wall slid open like a medieval elevator door, revealing a pitch-black passage. Casper's face went from pale to transparent. His knees buckled. He hit the floor like a sack of guilty potatoes. I grabbed a torch and stepped inside. What I found made everyone behind me gasp. The hidden vault was packed with dark red metal ingots. Hundreds of them, glowing with an eerie blood-colored shimmer under the firelight. This wasn't iron. This was something else entirely. I picked up an ingot. Heavier than normal iron. The surface had patterns that looked like actual veins. Like the metal was alive. System analysis rolled in. Blood steel Oregon composition. Iron 78.5%. Chromium 12.3%. Unknown substance 9.2%. Hardness 35%. Toughness 20%. Corrosion resistance 50%. Special. Weapons forged from this material display blood vein patterns. Morale intimidation 10%. A fantasy supermetal that's harder, tougher, rust-proof, and makes weapons that look so scary they debuff enemy morale just by existing. Horn was sitting on a gold mine. No, a blood gold mine. worth infinitely more than gold. Casper was melting into a puddle on the floor, cold sweat soaking his collar. Lord Horn discovered that weapons made from this metal never rust. On the black market, a single blood steel sword could fetch. I stopped listening because I'd spotted account books in the corner. Flipped one open. Page 1. Month 3. Delivered 30 war axes to ORCS. Received 60 slaves in exchange. Oh. Page 2. Month 5. Mine shaft collapse. 15 miners not evacuated. OH. Page 3. Month 7. Bribed border patrol captain. Cost. 100 gold coins. And then the last page. The one that made my vision go red. Secret agreement with Bloodscar Chieftain Grohl. Provide 100 weapons in exchange for attacking Shuang territory. There it was. In black ink on yellow paper. The complete paper trail of my father's murder. Horn armed the orcs. Horn pointed them at my home. Horn got my father killed. So that's how it was. My voice came out cold enough to freeze the torch flame. Horn used orc slaves for mining and traded weapons for more slaves. But why target Shuang territory specifically? It wasn't me, my lord. Casper threw himself at my boots, snot and tears everywhere. I was just the bookkeeper. Lord Horn said Baron Albert, your father, might have discovered the mine and the orc dealings, so he had to. Marco snapped. His boot connected with Casper's ribs. You animals. Casper went rolling across the floor like a human bowling ball and crashed into the wall. I can help you. He pointed a shaking finger at a small iron box. Money. All the money is in there. Horn sent some to the capital every month, to a finance minister's private vault. But the most important things are still here. Royce grabbed the old man by the collar and lifted him like a wet rag. What trick are you playing now, old dog? Nothing. I'm sincere, snot. Tears. Full waterworks. The box has evidence. Spare my life, please. I looked at him with the warmth of a glacier. Then kicked the iron box open. Gold. An avalanche of gold coins spilling across the floor like liquid sunshine. And between the coins, sealed letters with wax stamps. The one on top bore the royal crest. I picked it up. Read it by torchlight. Baron Albert's investigation has attracted His Majesty's attention. Per the prince's instructions, the Shuang territory issue must be resolved before the autumn hunt. Attached, border military deployment maps. The orc situation can be leveraged. Regarding the annexation of Shuang territory, the Noble Elder Council has been preliminarily arranged. My fingers tightened. The parchment creaked in my grip. A prince ordered this. Not just Horn acting alone. A member of the royal family wanted my territory gone and my family dead. They provided military intelligence. They cleared the political path. They used Horn as a puppet and the orcs as the murder weapon. My father Albert discovered the bloodsteel operation. He was going to report it. So they killed him, made it look like a random orc raid. And then Horn showed up with his fake niece and his marriage proposal to scoop up the leftovers. Everything connected. Every single piece. The random orc attack. The suspicious route they took. The absurd timing. My father dying a hero while I, the original me, hid drunk in the wine cellar. So that's how it is. I rolled the parchment slowly. My knuckles were white. I just don't know which prince wanted the Shuang family erased. Casper was beating his forehead on the stone floor. My lord, I've told you everything, please. I turned and walked out of the vault. Voice terrifyingly calm. Bring him. Royce, assemble all miners in the castle square. Marco, prepare the new policy announcement. The Greystone Square was packed with ragged miners. Hundreds of them, hunched over, hollow-eyed, beaten down. They looked like people who'd forgotten what hope smelled like. I stood on the steps. Behind me, Casper and the mine overseers, bound like packages. By authority of Baron Shuang, my voice wasn't loud, but the square went dead silent. Slavery in Greystone is abolished. Effective immediately, Marco stepped forward with a scroll. All miners are hereby converted to contract workers. 5 years of service earns full citizen status and 5 acres of land. Monthly wages paid based on output. The crowd erupted. An old miner with a face like cracked leather collapsed to his knees, lips trembling, unable to form words. Around him, others were crying, grabbing each other, shaking like they'd been hit by lightning made of hope. Royce dragged Casper forward. The old steward lay in the dirt like a deflated balloon in fancy clothes. As for these people, I kicked Casper lightly, voice going sub-zero. They answer for burying miners alive and selling human beings as livestock. Marco read from the account books. In the past 2 years, 43 miners killed in accidents. 17 beaten to death. Hang them at the mine entrance, I said. Let everyone see what happens to those who betray the people under their protection. A small figure burst from the crowd. A boy covered in coal dust. My lord. My father. He was. I crouched down. Armor clinked. I looked him straight in the eyes. What's your name? T. Tommy, my lord. Dirty fingers twisted together. My father last month in the mine. They said it was an accident. I unclipped a short sword from my belt, stamped with the swaying eagle, and held it out to him. Take it. First strike is yours. Tommy's hands shook as he gripped the handle. Tears carved white tracks through the coal dust on his face. Public approval 30. Labor force 235, miners. Special resource unlocked, blood steel vein. That evening, Greystone War Room. Candles everywhere. Blood steel samples on the table next to the confiscated account books, and the most dangerous letter I'd ever read. Time to play politics. Real politics. Marco. 2 secret dispatches. I tapped the blood steel sample. First, a detailed report of Horn's crimes. Or conspiracy, minor murders, everything. Includes sworn testimonies from the miners. Written in blood if possible. The dramatics help. Mention the royal letter, not 1 word, cold smile. Second dispatch, detailed analysis of blood steel properties. Include a refined sample. Pack it in a plain iron box. No special markings. Royce's eyes narrowed with understanding. You're planning to show the king what he needs to see, while giving him room to save face. I picked up the prince's letter. Held it over the candle flame. Watched the parchment curl and blacken and turn to ash. As for this, it never existed. Because here's the game. A prince orchestrated my family's destruction. The king may or may not have known. If I wave that letter around screaming for justice, I become a threat to the crown. Dead within a month. But if I pretend I never found it, send the king Horn's crimes, which are genuinely horrific, and separately show him Bloodsteel exists, now the king gets to publicly punish Horn's conspirators, look righteous, and discover a strategic supermetal that I control. I become valuable instead of dangerous. Send 2 teams, I continued. One takes the official road, big escort, loud procession, carrying the crime evidence for all to see. The other disguises as a merchant caravan, secretly delivering the Bloodsteel sample to the capital. Marco's eyes lit up. Like a hunter using bait to lure the beast from its den, and it gives His Majesty a graceful exit. He can punish whoever jumps out to defend Horn without admitting the crown was ever involved. The bait convoy would attract every rat connected to Horn's network. They'd expose themselves trying to intercept the evidence. And the king would conveniently have a list of traitors to purge, all while I played the loyal, oblivious baron who just happened to find some interesting metal. The prince who killed my father thinks the Shuang family is dealt with. A drunk heir, a frozen wasteland, a dead end. He doesn't know the drunk is gone. The wasteland has Bloodsteel, and the dead end just learned exactly who wants him buried. Patience. Build power. Remember everything. Forget nothing. The Starfaller plays the long game now. The morning peace at Snow Eagle Castle was shattered by hooves on stone, and a goat throwing sparks off the cobblestones like a 4-legged flint striker. Royce was holding Grundon in the air with one hand. The dwarf's stubby legs kicked in every direction. By the gods' beards. Careful. My morning ale is spilling. Royce ignored him completely. The man treats dwarf complaints like background noise, and slapped a parchment against Grundon's chest. Cold dust scattered everywhere. Greystone or sample. The Lord says you'll recognize it. Grundon squinted through his hangover haze, unrolled the note, and froze. Like someone hit his pause button. The charcoal sketch showed a mineral sample with veins that looked like they were breathing. Blood-red patterns running through dark metal. His rough fingers traced the lines. His alcoholic nose twitched. Earth's blood. This is impossible. Then his goat reared up on hind legs and bolted toward the castle gate with the dwarf clinging on, wild-eyed, mouth open. He didn't even notice his precious ale flask tumbling into the dirt, amber liquid soaking into the ground. Grundon abandoning alcohol. That's how you know this is serious. Greystone War Room. This, or is a strategic resource, I tapped the table. Cannot fall into enemy hands. Starting tomorrow, the North Ridge mine gets heavy guard. All Bloodsteel ships directly to Snow Eagle Castle. Royce grimaced. My lord, our current forces might not. Pick 30 combat-capable men from the freed miners. They become the mine guard. I turned to Marco. Trade route suggestions? Marco stroked the Bloodsteel sample like it was a newborn baby. According to Horn's books, this stockpile is worth over 20,000 gold on the black market. But selling raw or is leaving money on the table. I recommend forging it into weapons first. Then the system dropped something that made my gamer heart explode. Ding. Hidden quest triggered. Bloodsteel forging. System Forge Workshop unlocked. Advanced building. Bloodsteel forge. Unique. Features. Frost iron furnace. Tempering efficiency 40%. Ancient rune forging station. Legendary item probability 0.5%. Bloodsteel resonance chamber. Equipment special effects 25%. Forging. System. Unlocked. Any mount and blade veteran knows the real game isn't mount and blade. It's mount and blacksmith. The entire community joke is that the game should be renamed because players spend more time at the forge than on horseback. I personally spent hundreds of hours hammering virtual metal in Colradia, making weapons and selling them for profit. And now I have a real forge, with real legendary crafting odds, and bloodsteel, and special features. My brain short-circuited for about 5 seconds. My lord, Marco stared at me like I'd just had a small stroke. I snapped back and pulled out a building schematic that the system had conveniently materialized in my coat. Build a forge workshop on Snow Eagle Castle's south lot. Follow these blueprints exactly. Marco unrolled the plans. His eyes went dinner plate wide. My lord, this will cost all our funds. Plus everything we took from Horn. Worth it. I looked toward the door just as Grundon came crashing through it like a cannonball made of alcohol and enthusiasm. His eyes were the size of golf balls. Gods above. It's really Earth's blood. Because this forge, I said with absolute conviction, will produce legendary weapons. Grundon's ears perked up so fast they practically whistled. Ale stains on his beard completely forgotten. Wait, did you say legendary equipment? He charged the table in 3 dwarf-sized steps, stubby fingers stabbing the bloodsteel sample. With just this stuff. What's wrong? Dwarf blacksmith not confident enough? Bull. His face turned tomato red. His ale nose looked like a ripe strawberry. When I was apprenticing in the capital, my swords made elves drool. Then he dropped his voice to a whisper. Rough fingers caressing the bloodsteel's surface patterns. But this alone isn't enough. He leaned close to the sample and took a deep sniff. Because dwarves apparently identify all metals by smell. Meaning, he looked around suspiciously, then fished an oilskin package from his waistband. Peeled back the layers. 3 glowing blue crystals sat inside, instantly frosting the table's surface with actual ice. Frost iron hearts, he whispered like he was naming forbidden weapons. Only with these can bloodsteel truly come alive. He rubbed his thick fingers together. But you'd need special forging techniques. What do you need? First, a master smith. Like my teacher, his eyes went cunning. Old Grom is stubborn as raw pig iron, but he's the last dwarf alive who knows ancient rune forging. Marco started calculating. Hiring a dwarf master from the capital would cost at least. Don't bother with the math. I turned to Grundon. Tell your master that Snow Eagle Castle has the only ancient rune forging station in the entire kingdom. Grundon's nose went nuclear red. God's beards. You don't even have the forge's shadow yet. You're basically, strategically exaggerating. I smiled, tapping the system blueprints. My finger landed on the castle's underground section, where a crimson wave pattern was marked. There's an ancient geothermal vein beneath Snow Eagle Castle, enough to power a volcanic furnace. The dwarf's goat beard stood straight up. Geothermal furnace? He snatched the blueprints with trembling hands. This design, I leaned close to his ear. Temperature reaches triple that of a normal furnace. Imagine combining that with frost iron tempering. His eyes went copper coin round. Beard fully vertical. Gods above. Why didn't you say so? I'm leaving right now. That old mule will see the frost iron hearts and the bloodsteel samples and crawl here if he has to. Grundon blasted out the castle gate so fast he nearly flipped a grain cart. His goat went berserk toward the capital, kicking up a dust trail so long it looked like a dirt dragon chasing the horizon. A dwarf who abandoned his ale to ride at maximum speed toward his estranged master. powered by the promise of legendary forging and a furnace hot enough to melt reality. Meanwhile, I'm standing here having just lied about owning a forge that doesn't exist yet, used blueprints that materialized from a video game system, and promised technology based on a geothermal vent I haven't even dug yet. But the blueprints are real. The geothermal vein is there. And once old Grum arrives and sees what we're building, he'll never leave. Mount and Blade taught me two things. Always invest in archery, and never underestimate the power of a good forge. Time to put the blacksmith back in Mount and Blacksmith. The Starfaller is going into the weapons manufacturing business, baby. 1 month later, the forge was taking shape on Snow Eagle Castle's south side, a circular building with a massive underground furnace at its center. I stood in the half-finished workshop feeling the ground vibrate beneath my boots. The system's geothermal well was already pumping heat. This place was alive. My lord, they're here. I rushed to the gate. Coming up the road, the most ridiculous convoy I'd ever seen. Grundon leading on his goat, followed by 3 wagons pulled by giant mountain goats. And sitting on the middle wagon like a grumpy red-bearded king, Grum Iron Anvil. Master blacksmith of the capital. The real deal. The old dwarf hit the ground so hard I swear the earth flinched. Stomped straight up to me, cloudy eyes suddenly sharp as daggers. Boy, you better not have lied to me. His voice sounded like iron blocks fighting. I said nothing. Just let him inside. The second Grom's boot touched the workshop floor, he froze. Palm flat against the wall, pupils shrinking to pinpoints. This pulse, his sandpaper voice went quiet. It's alive. The system-generated workshop was doing its thing. Runes embedded in the walls glowing and dimming with the geothermal energy flow, breathing like a stone lung. The floor around the central furnace was warm even through iron boots. Then Grom grabbed my collar with calloused fists and yanked me close. Ale breath hit me like a weapon. Boy, where did you get these blueprints? His finger jabbed toward the walls. This rune arrangement is lost dwarven secrets, ancient Shuang family archives, straight face. Zero hesitation. The lie came out smoother than butter on hot bread. Horse crap. His roar shook dust from the ceiling. You humans can't even read proper runes. Then his voice dropped. Eyes went dangerous. Unless, thick finger pointed down. You found IT. My heart sped up. The system blueprints apparently connected to something real in this world's history. Time to play along. The cellars beneath Snow Eagle Castle do contain some unusual things. Grom let go of me like I'd turned electric. Stumbled back 2 steps. Gods above, he fumbled a beaten leather flask from his belt and drained it. Hands shaking. I knew it. After the great earthquake, the heart of the furnace vanished. Hidden lore triggered. Legend of the furnace heart. Special tech unlocked. Ancient rune forging, basic. Grundon sidled up and whispered the backstory. Legend says when the Dwarven kingdom fell, their most precious forge core was brought to the surface. Old Grom's been searching for it for 200 years. 200 years. This dwarf has been looking for a mythical furnace core for longer than my country has existed, and my video game system just casually generated one in my basement. Grom was on his knees in front of the furnace, praying in Dwarven. When he stood up, the cloudiness in his eyes was gone, replaced by fire. Start working. The old dwarf's shout rattled the roof tiles. Grundon, prepare the frost iron essence. Boy, he pointed at me, bring all the blood steel. Grundon offered up his blue crystals like sacred artifacts. Look at the quality, master. Grom snatched them, examined them for half a second. Decent. Subgrade. Then he pulled a small iron box from his own belt pouch. Let me show you what real frost iron hearts look like. Legendary material discovered. Pure frost iron heart, epic. Tempering efficiency 80%. Weapon sharpness 50%. The box opened, and the entire workshop dropped 10 degrees. 3 deep blue crystals inside, covered in delicate frost patterns, radiating cold like tiny portable winters. Grundon's crystals were knockoff toys compared to these. The old man had been carrying epic-grade crafting materials in his pants this whole time. When the first blood steel ingot hit the furnace, something magical happened. The blood-red veins on the ore surface started pulsing. Actually pulsing, like a heartbeat. The entire block turned deep crimson, and the furnace flames shifted from orange to blue. See that? Grom's voice cracked with emotion. It's breathing. System readout appeared. blood steel smelting progress. Purity, 78%, 89%, 93%. Warning, temperature approaching critical threshold. Isn't that too hot? I asked, eyebrows up. Grom grinned with his terrible yellow teeth. Perfect. He yanked a control lever. White steam exploded from copper pipes on the furnace's sides. Know why it's called the heart of the furnace? Because it regulates itself. The furnace's internal structure started moving. 3 ring-shaped partitions extended from the walls, separating the fire into different temperature zones. Top level, blood steel already melted into thick liquid. Middle, softening. Bottom, fresh or just starting to glow. Moradin's beard. Grundon clutched his frost iron crystals, jaw on the floor. This is real dwarven engineering. Grom stripped off his shirt. Scarred, muscular body that looked carved from the same stone as the workshop. He grabbed a special hammer from the tool rack. Octagonal head, each face engraved with different runes. Watch closely, boy. The old dwarf's voice went dead serious for the first time. This is step 1 of rune forging, the awakening. First hammer strike on the glowing blood steel ingot. The entire workshop shuddered. Runes on the hammer head blazed red. The blood patterns on the steel responded, resonating, vibrating, singing. With each blow, the patterns started flowing, reorganizing, forming increasingly complex designs. The metal wasn't being shaped. It was being woken up. 3 days, 3 nights, nonstop hammering. I visited every day watching the system's forging progress bar crawl forward like the world's most suspenseful loading screen. Day 4. Bar hit 100%. I practically kicked the door open. A wave of heat mixed with magic and metal hit me in the face. Grom was slumped against the forging table, his rune hammer broken in 2 pieces. But his face wore the most satisfied smile I'd seen on any living creature. His eyes were locked on the sword lying on the table. It's done. His voice was barely a whisper. First one in 300 years. A real rune weapon. I walked closer. The sword was dark crimson, like solidified blood. Golden rune patterns covered the surface, and they were moving, breathing, flowing like living calligraphy. As I leaned in, the runes glowed brighter. The sword recognized me. Blood steel rune sword. Unnamed, legendary. Status: unawakened, 0 out of 100. Abilities: blood drink. Life steal on hit. Blood rage, attack speed 20% for 30 seconds after taking damage. 2 more slots, locked. And the cherry on top, hidden trait, growth, evolves as wielder grows stronger. A scaling legendary weapon. It gets stronger as I level up. This sword will never become obsolete. It's the gift that keeps on stabbing. Grum looked up, bloodshot eye fixed on me. One last step. Needs the Lord's blood. He handed me a delicate silver knife. 3 drops. On the rune convergence point, I sliced my palm open without hesitation. 3 drops of blood hit the blade. The golden runes erupted in red light. The sword pulsed in my hand like a second heartbeat. Blood contract complete. Weapon bound. Richard Schwaying. Growth trait unlocked. Now, the old dwarf rasped, give it a name. Choose wisely. This name binds to the blade forever. And to you. I stared at the flowing runes. The crimson blade. The frost in the air from the tempering. The oath I swore to the king. The winter that was coming. Frost sworn. The runes flashed once, accepting the name, then settled into a steady, warm glow. I was holding a living, breathing, blood-drinking legendary sword that I forged in a volcanic furnace powered by ancient dwarven technology, tempered with epic crystals, and sealed with my own blood. The wine cellar drunk now had a weapon that would make kings jealous. Then the door swung open and killed the moment. Roy stepped in looking like someone had replaced his breakfast with bad news. My lord, royal envoys have arrived in the castle hall. They carry a new decree from the king. He lowered his voice. They've been asking about the forge workshop. Of course they have. I unlock a legendary weapon, and the crown sends spies within hours. Nothing stays secret in this kingdom. Especially not when you're building a volcanic forge that shakes the ground and shoots blue fire into the sky. I looked down at Frostsworn glowing quietly in my hand. Time to go meet some royal busybodies. And this time, I'm not walking in unarmed. The Starfaller has a legendary sword now. Let's see who wants to play politics with that on the table. I stood at the tower window watching 12 knights in royal cloaks escort a fancy carriage across my drawbridge. The system helpfully tagged everyone like a social media app for medieval politics. Royal Envoy Team. Special Envoy Algernon Whitehall. Friendship, 60. King's Chief Secretary. The Good Cop. Knight Captain Redmond. Friendship, -50. Second Prince's Lackey. The Bad Cop. Finance Officer Lines. Friendship, 0. Finance Minister's Spy. The Accountant Cop. 1 group, 3 masters. I snorted. Algernon's here to deliver rewards. Redmond is the second prince's attack dog sniffing for dirt, so it was the second prince who ordered my family killed. And the finance guy is here to calculate how much my blood steel is worth. 3 different factions walking through my door wearing the same uniform. Royal politics is just a team-building exercise for people who want to stab each other. I changed into formal clothes. Deep blue coat, silver swaying eagle on the cuffs, and strapped Frost Sworn to my hip in the most visible position possible. The crimson sheath with golden rune patterns glowed softly in the candlelight. Subtle? No. Intimidating? Absolutely. Galvin, keep the forge running, but display only the normal weapons. The boring stuff, he got it instantly. Want me to hide Master Grom? No need. That old man's terrible personality is the best disguise we have. Nobody interrogates a dwarf who responds to questions by screaming profanity and throwing hammers. Grom's anger issues are basically a security system. I entered the Great Hall. The envoy team was already lined up. Algernon, refined, gray hair slicked back perfectly, golden quill badge on his chest, bowed gracefully. Baron, by the king's command, we are here to commend your achievements. Behind him, Knight Captain Redmond let out a cold snort. Full steel plate armor, helmet visor down, iron gauntlet resting on his sword hilt, eyes scanning every corner of my hall like he was cataloging evidence for a future prosecution. Finance Officer Line stood at the back like a human shadow, eyes glued to Frost Sworn on my hip. He was already mentally appraising it. This man could probably tell you the resale value of your own kidneys. Serving the kingdom is my honor. Standard noble bow. Allow me to prepare a welcoming feast. Algernon waved it off. No need. His Majesty is more interested in your border defense progress. Then he got ceremonial. Pulled a gold-stamped scroll from a silk box held by a servant. His Majesty grants the Shuang family hereditary ownership of Greystone territory, with a 3-year tax exemption. 2 more chests carried in. Annual border defense funding. 5,000 gold coins. 5,000. Per year. Tax-free territory. Hereditary rights. The king was basically sending me a gift basket the size of a house. I accepted the decree while watching Redmond prowl around my hall like a wolf in steel armor. The Shuang family will faithfully guard the north. I said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Algernon smiled, then leaned in so close only I could hear. He greatly appreciates how you handled the horn situation. Translation. The king knows about the prince's letter. He knows I found it. He knows I burned it. And he's rewarding me for keeping my mouth shut. Smart king. Smarter baron. We understand each other perfectly. This is Sir Redmond. Algernon switched back to normal volume. He ensured our safe passage here. Redmond stepped forward. His voice came through the visor like a threat wrapped in metal. Baron, I hear your troops move with the precision of enchanted golems. How exactly did you build such an elite force in mere months? Iron boots scraped the marble floor like nails on a chalkboard. Especially since Shuang territory's finances were historically cleaner than a goblin's coin purse. The temperature in the hall dropped. Not magically, just the social temperature. Every guard in the room tensed. I caught lines sneaking out a notebook. Already taking notes. These people came prepared to dissect my operation. My soldiers simply know how to hold a sword better than the gold-plated toys in the capital. My voice carried just the right amount of confusion, as if his hostility was strange and unexpected. A border lord sharpening his blade is as natural as a farmer sharpening his scythe. Algernon coughed diplomatically. Sir Redmond is a garrison instructor in the capital. Military matters naturally interest him. Smooth. Professional. I'm sure the Baron has his methods. Then Redmond drew his sword and pointed it at me. That weapon on your hip, Baron. Might I have a closer look? The hall went silent. In noble etiquette, asking to inspect another lord's weapon like this is basically throwing a glove in his face. It's a dual challenge wearing a polite mask. My hand found Frostsworn's grip. The crimson runes began to flow under my palm, sensing the tension. The sword was literally getting excited. My blade doesn't leave its sheath without tasting blood, Sir Knight. My voice dropped low. Are you certain you want to test that legend right now? Then let it taste. His visor snapped shut with a metallic click. I'd love to evaluate this. Special weapon of the Northern Lord. Algernon opened his mouth to intervene, but Lines cut him off. The accountant of all people. Gentlemen, perhaps the training yard? The Crown does need to assess border combat readiness. He glanced at me with a loaded look. A friendly spar, naturally. Friendly. Sure. As friendly as a shark handshake. I saw the game clearly. This wasn't an accident. The second prince sent Redmond to either expose my secrets or humiliate me publicly. Lines wanted to see Frostsworn in action so he could report its capabilities. And Algernon, the king's man, probably had orders to observe. Everyone wanted this fight. For different reasons. I pretended to hesitate. Let them think I was nervous. Then reluctantly nodded. If the special envoy insists, inside my head, my gamer brain was grinning. This guy has -50 friendship, full plate armor, and the arrogance of someone who's never fought a baron with a legendary scaling weapon and a system-assisted aimbot. Redmond thinks he's about to expose a frontier weakling. He's about to discover what Frostsworn does when it gets hungry. Training yard. Castle guards on one side. Royal knights on the other. The air was thick enough to chew. Redmond had swapped his heavy plate armor for chainmail and was holding a two-handed greatsword that gleamed like it wanted to introduce itself to my internal organs. Algernon planted his staff between us, by warrior's blood as witness. When victory is decided, stop immediately. Redmond attacked first. The greatsword came down like a falling building. I sidestepped. Frostsworn jabbed at his ribs from a tricky angle. He had to abandon his attack to block. Sparks flew when our blades met. Actual sparks, not the metaphorical kind. Then his swordwork got weird. The greatsword started leaving afterimages in the air, moving faster than physics should allow. Some kind of magical enchantment on his gear. The second prince's guard dog has some nice toys, I muttered. I deliberately opened a gap in my defense. Bait. Redmond took it, committed to a full-power horizontal sweep. The moment the blade screamed toward me, I ducked. Steel passed over my head close enough to trim my hair. And while he was overextended, Frostsworn kissed his thigh. Redmond grunted. But no blood came out. Because Frostsworn drank it. The wound opened, but the blood flowed into the blade instead of onto the ground. I felt a warm pulse travel up through the hilt into my hand. Like the sword just had a snack. Blood drink triggered. 3 HP absorbed per hit. Even worse for Redmond, the wound wouldn't close. The edges turned grayish-white. His own body couldn't heal it. Frostsworn didn't just cut people. It cut them, and then told their body to forget how to fix it. Dark magic, Redmond roared. You dare use forbidden sorcery? I didn't bother answering. Just kept attacking. Frostsworn moved like it was alive in my hand. Every swing left a crimson afterimage. The blade was enjoying this. My sword was having a better time than I was. Redmond's defense started cracking. His chainmail collected new gashes like a bad review collects 1-star ratings. Then the knight pulled something dirty. He pretended to stumble backward, and when I lunged to follow up, he whipped a hidden dagger from his boot and threw it at my face. I twisted my head. The blade sliced my cheek open. Blood ran down my jaw and dripped onto Frostsworn. Bad move, Redmond. Very bad move. Blood rage triggered. Attack speed 20% for 30 seconds. You just fed my sword my blood. It's now angry on my behalf. What came next was 30 seconds of absolute violence. Frostsworn became a crimson lightning bolt. My arms moved faster than my brain could process. The system was pumping speed directly into my muscles. Strike after strike after strike. So fast the blade was just a continuous red blur. Redmond went full defensive. His greatsword hummed from blocking impacts. His arms were shaking. His footwork was collapsing. Then I saw it. His weight shifted wrong. Balance broken for half a second. Half a second was all Frostsworn needed. The crimson blade came down with everything I had. It hit Redmond's greatsword, a weapon made of forged steel, and cut through it like the metal was made of cheese. The broken blade kept going, straight into Redmond's right arm, just below the elbow. Crack. The sound of bone breaking echoed across the silent training yard. His forearm hit the frozen dirt, still holding half a broken sword. The stump went white for a moment. Then blood finally started pouring out. The second prince's elite knight captain was kneeling in the snow, minus one arm, breathing like a dying bellows. I sheathed Frostsworn. The blood runes faded slowly, like a cat settling after a meal. I looked down at him. Go tell your master. Northern swords are made for cutting paws that reach too far. Dead silence on the training ground. A guard dropped his spear. Nobody noticed. Algernon immediately waved medics forward and stopped any royal knights from doing something stupid. Smart man. He cleared his throat over the blood-soaked snow. The match is decided. Sir Redmond, please accompany the physician. He turned to me, voice dropping. Baron, a private word. We moved to a secure room. Algernon produced a letter with the royal seal. His Majesty appreciates your talents. His eyes lingered on Frostsworn at my hip. I opened the letter. One line. The North needs a new guardian. Short. Loaded. Royal. Algernon's voice went even quieter. The Bloodsteel situation has attracted attention from multiple parties. His Majesty hopes you'll share the fruits. Meaningful glance toward my forge workshop. Say, 10 Bloodsteel regulation swords per year. The old king wanted weapons. In exchange for protection. A transaction disguised as loyalty. Snow Eagle territory will always be the kingdom's faithful shield. I chose my words carefully. But Bloodsteel production is extremely limited. I'd need more resources to expand. Algernon's mysterious smile widened. The border defense budget could increase to 8,000 gold per year. Additionally, His Majesty would appreciate if you kept a watchful eye on. His finger tapped in the direction of the capital, certain restless elements. The second prince. The king wanted me to be his counterweight against his own son. The prince who ordered my family destroyed. And now the king was asking me to help contain him. The universe was basically handing me a revenge mandate wrapped in a royal paycheck. Please thank His Majesty for his trust. I brought Algernon to the forge workshop. The chimney was belching dark red smoke. Before we even got close, Grom's voice shook the window frames. Get out. You gold-plated fleas aren't fit to look at a dwarven furnace. Two royal knights were stumbling backward, covered in cold dust. One had burned holes in his cape from flying sparks. Beautiful. Grom's personality was working exactly as planned. The master seems to be in a mood. I held back my grin and gestured for Algernon to wait. I walked in alone. Heat wave and hammering sounds hit me like a wall. Grom was pounding a glowing ingot, sparks flying like angry fireflies. He glared at me. Another sightseeing tour? Am I a circus dwarf to you, royal envoy? I set Frostsworn on the forging table. He wants to know if this can be mass-produced. The hammering stopped. Grom looked at the sword, then exploded with laughter that shook the walls. Mass-produced? You think rune weapons are bread rolls? He snatched Frostsworn, rough fingers tracing the patterns. Voice dropping to a furnace rumble. This sword exists because of three things. The furnace heart, frost iron essence, and dwarven runecraft. He jammed the sword back into the table. Sparks everywhere. The furnace heart needs 30 years to recharge. The frost iron essence is gone. The rune hammer is broken. Algernon stood at the door, frowning. What about ordinary bloodsteel weapons? Grom snorted, dragged a wooden crate from the corner, and kicked the lid open. 20 dark crimson swords inside. These I can make. He grabbed one, casually swung it at an iron ingot, and left a deep gouge. Better than regular steel. Suppresses orc regeneration. Never rusts. But compared to a real rune weapon, contemptuous laugh, it's the difference between a stick and dragon fire. I picked up a short sword. System analyzed it instantly. Bloodsteel longsword, superior. Traits: regeneration suppression, permanent corrosion resistance. 20 bloodsteel weapons per year, I offered. Algernon's eyes sparkled with diplomatic greed. His Majesty will be pleased. But every weapon must be strictly registered. Every single blade tracked. Of course, polite smile. Easy agreement. Because 20 registered swords per year was a tiny fraction of what I could actually produce. The king gets his toys. I keep the real output secret. Everyone's happy. Then a war horn shredded the moment. Galvin burst into the forge looking like someone had replaced his blood with ice water. My lord. Scouts report. Massive orc gathering in the Frost Whisper Mountains. Algernon went pale. How many? At least 1,000. Galvin's throat bobbed. And they're flying Bloodspear tribe banners. The Bloodspear tribe. 5 times larger than the Bloodscar clan. The biggest meanest orc nation in the Frostwhisper Mountains. And their specialty? Taming frost wolves for winter warfare. 1,000 orcs with trained wolves, attacking in winter, their strongest season, heading for manhwa territory. I just cut off a prince's bodyguard's arm, made a weapons deal with the king, and now the biggest orc army I've ever faced is knocking on my door. Frostsworn hummed quietly at my hip, almost eager. Well, I muttered, at least the sword is excited. War horns echoed over Snow Eagle Castle. Signal fires lit. Black smoke punching into the sky like angry columns, carrying the message across my territory. Trouble. Big trouble. I climbed the wall, and the system map unfolded. Red dots spreading across the northern Frostwhisper foothills like a rash. A huge rash. An angry, green, axe-wielding rash. Scout alert. Orc Tribal Army, 1,200. Threat level, extreme. Direction, Snow Eagle Castle. 1,200. Not 200 like last time. 1,200. 6 times the force that nearly broke my village defense. Coming straight for my front door. Algernon rushed up behind me, his fancy mink cloak collecting snow like a fur-covered mop. Baron, should we request reinforcements from the Border Legion? My eyes weren't on the orc army. They were on a different red marker, inside my own castle. Redmond's position. The one-armed knight I'd just relieved of his limb. The system tagged him with new crimson text. Second Prince's spy. Hostile. Not even slightly surprising, I sighed. I raised my voice deliberately loud. No reinforcements needed. Snow Eagle Castle's defenses are impenetrable, Algernon blinked. But the orc numbers. What the special envoy doesn't know, I projected my voice so every guard on the wall could hear, is that we recently captured Horn's hidden siege equipment from Greystone. 20 heavy crossbow turrets and massive quantities of fire oil. All sitting in our warehouses. Total lie. Complete fabrication. I had none of those things. But the soldiers straightened their backs. Chests out. Confidence up. And more importantly, Redmond, lurking somewhere below with his one remaining ear pressed to every wall, just received disinformation that he'd inevitably try to pass to the enemy. 2 birds, 1 lie. Morale boost and counterintelligence. I'm getting good at this. Galvin, escort the special envoy to his quarters. I need to inspect the defenses personally. Once everyone cleared out, I pulled Royce aside. Redmond is the Second Prince's spy. Royce's response was immediate and terrifying. Want me to handle it? Handle it. Coming from Royce meant a very permanent kind of handling. No, he's more useful alive. For now, night fell. I studied the sand table alone in the war room, watching the system map show the orc army setting up camp at the North Village ruins. Baron, Ethel materialized at my window like she'd been there the whole time. Snow crystals in her silver hair. No footsteps. No warning. Just Yelef. The Bloodspear tribe didn't come alone. She slipped inside, ice fragments on her cloak glittering like tiny diamonds. I spotted human guides embedded in the orc columns. Human guides. Someone was directing the orcs. Someone who knew the terrain. Someone who had a vested interest in seeing my castle fall. 3 guesses who. First 2 don't count. Then the worst news. They brought siege engines. 3 counterweight trebuchets. Trebuchets. Professional ones. Not the janky catapults I summoned from the system. Actual military-grade counterweight siege weapons that could turn my walls into gravel. My fingers tapped the sand table. Snow Eagle Castle's walls were strong, but sustained trebuchet bombardment would crack them open eventually. Can you destroy them? Nearly impossible. Ethel shook her head. They're positioned in the center of the orc camp. Heavily guarded. Then I noticed something on the system map, Redmond's red, that was moving. Slowly. Sneakily. Toward the dungeon. My mouth curved into a smile. Ethel, I need a favor. Deep in the dungeon's twisting corridors, Redmond's one-armed shadow crept along the torchlit walls like a broken spider. The knight captain slunk to the deepest cell, pulled out a stolen key, and opened the iron door with a screech that could wake the dead. Inside, an orc prisoner. Missing left ear, 3 bronze earrings. Yellow-brown eyes glowing in the dark. One of the Bloodscar orcs we'd captured. Who are you? The orc asked in rough human speech. Redmond unclipped a wolf-tooth necklace from his belt. This is Chieftain Kolog's personal token. Take it. Command the captured orcs. When the siege begins tomorrow night, you create chaos inside the castle. Sabotage the defenses. The orc grinned with every fang showing, took the necklace. The Bloodscar tribe will complete the mission. Bloodscar tribe? Redmond froze. You're not Bloodspear. I'm afraid you'll be disappointed, a cold voice from the shadows. Ethel materialized like a ghost made of moonlight. Elven longbow drawn. Arrow tip and INCH from Redmond's throat. Simultaneously, torches on both sides of the corridor blazed to full brightness, revealing me, Algernon, Royce, and a ring of guards. We'd been standing there the whole time. Redmond's face went white as fresh snow. His one remaining hand grabbed for his sword and found an empty scabbard, because Grash, the orc in the cell, had already taken it through the bars. The prisoner was my orc. The whole thing was a setup. Redmond walked into a honeypot trap and handed us physical evidence of treason while we watched from 10 feet away. I wish I could say I felt bad about how easy that was. I don't. Redmond's arm shook violently, rage and desperation burning in his eyes. I should have finished you in that duel. If not for that cursed sword. His gaze locked onto Frostsworn at my hip, greed and hatred fighting for control of his face. Algernon stepped from the shadows. Staff cracked against stone. Redmond Blackthorn. In the king's name, I declare you guilty of high treason. Redmond's face twisted into something inhuman. He ripped a hidden dagger from his boot, but didn't aim at any of us. He drove it toward his own throat. An elf arrow knocked the dagger spinning out of his hand. Sparks illuminated his desperate eyes. Algernon's staff cracked the floor again. You dare conspire with orcs against a kingdom noble? His voice trembled with fury, or what sounded like fury. Who sent you? I glanced at him. Nice performance. The old secretary knew exactly who sent Redmond. This whole dramatic interrogation was theater for the official record. What an actor. I'm taking notes. I pressed Frostsworn's tip against Redmond's throat. Who provided the trebuchets? The knight captain suddenly smiled. A creepy smile. You'll never guess. Then black blood leaked from his mouth. His pupils dilated, expanding like spilled ink. Damn it. Royce grabbed his jaw. Too late. Poison. A suicide capsule hidden somewhere we didn't check. Redmond was dead before he finished his dramatic exit line. Even in death, this guy committed to being theatrical. His body crumpled. That eerie smile frozen on his face forever. Grash reached through the cell bars and handed me the wolf-tooth necklace. Bloodspear Chieftain Kolog's personal token. The system identified it instantly. Bloodspear Chieftain's token, special. A dead spy. Physical proof of a prince's treason. An enemy chieftain's personal identification. And now I had all three. Change of plans. I turned toward the exit. Ethel, I need one more favor. Algernon hurried after me. Baron, what are you planning? I stopped at the stairway corner. When the enemy sends you a gift, you use it. The old secretary straightened up. Baron, I must return to the capital immediately to report this. Extraordinary situation. I nodded. Take Redmond's body and all the evidence. Deliver it personally to the king. Algernon's eyes met mine. An understanding passed between us, deeper than words. The king would receive proof that his own son was arming orcs and sabotaging border defenses. Combined with the Bloodsteel deal and my demonstrated loyalty, the second prince's position just got significantly more fragile. His Majesty will know who guards the north, Algernon said with solemn weight. He left within the hour, racing toward the capital with a corpse, a treason file, and enough political ammunition to shake the throne room. Meanwhile, I had a chieftain's personal token in my pocket, 1,200 orcs at my doorstep, 3 trebuchets aimed at my walls, and about 24 hours to figure out how to turn all of it into an advantage. The second prince wanted me dead. The orc chieftain wanted my skull. And somewhere between those two threats was an opportunity that smelled like the most dangerous gamble of my life. Frostsworn hummed. The runes pulsed warm against my hip. Yeah, I told the sword. I know. Me too. Sunset turned the sky the color of blood. Appropriate, given what I was about to spend. I stared at my system balance like a kid in a candy store with his parents' credit card. Current dinars, 50,572, including border defense funding. 50,000. The king's annual budget plus all my accumulated earnings. I'd gone from negative balance and loan shark interest to having more money than I could physically count. Shopping time. 100 Imperial recruits. 50 Imperial infantry. 50 Imperial archers. 30 Imperial citizen cavalry. Total cost, 8,500 dinars. Remaining, 43,072. First time since transmigrating that I have more money than I can spend. Feels incredible, I muttered. Soldiers materialized on the field outside the castle. Rows and rows of them. Armored, armed, standing at attention like they'd been there forever. The wall guards nearly had collective heart failure. Gods above. An old soldier made holy signs on his chest. The Lord summoned the swaying ancient allies again. By now, ancient allies appearing from nowhere was basically my brand. Nobody questioned it anymore. They just made religious gestures and moved on. Faith-based military logistics. Night fell. 43 cavalrymen lined up in the courtyard. I was rolling the blood spear chieftain's wolf-tooth necklace between my fingers like a poker chip. Here's the plan. My voice cut through the cold air. We disguise as messengers using the chieftain's token, walk straight through the outer perimeter. Ethel creates a diversion on the west side. Night raid mission started. Objective, destroy trebuchets, 0/3. Midnight. The weirdest convoy in military history left the castle. 20 Bloodscar orc warriors pushing 3 canvas-covered carts. 40 cavalry, escorting them. We look like a supply delivery, because that's exactly what we were pretending to be. Orc camp perimeter. 2 sentries warming their hands by a fire. Halt. Spear raised. Firelight revealed our carts and 20 orc warriors. Grash stepped forward. 3 bronze earrings. Missing left ear. Looking every inch the authentic orc messenger. What's the holdup? He snarled in ORCS, flashing the wolf-tooth necklace. Chieftain Kulog's gift has arrived. The sentry leaned in. Eyes went wide. That's the chieftain's token. He scrambled aside. But why at midnight? Grash slapped him across the face. You want the whole camp knowing what we're hauling. Metal clanking sounds from under the canvas. The sentry nodded knowingly. Siege engine parts? We were carrying fire oil hidden under tarps designed to look like trebuchet components. And this guard just filled in his own cover story for us. Enemy incompetence is the greatest military asset in any world. Through the outer line, I exhaled inside my iron helmet. Deeper into the camp. The smell hit me. Rotting meat mixed with animal hides. Orc hygiene standards are exactly what you'd expect, which is to say non-existent. Through the helmet visor, I could see orcs scattered around campfires. Some sharpening axes. Some snoring face down in the dirt. 1,000 warriors at rest, completely unaware that their siege weapons had about 2 minutes left to exist. Left, I whispered in ORCS. Trebuchets should be center camp. We turned past a totem pole made of actual bones, and there they were, 3 massive trebuchets, each over 5 meters tall. Counterweight baskets loaded with boulders. Throwing arms wrapped in oil-soaked rope. And next to them, dozens of clay pots full of fire oil. They parked their siege engines next to their own ammunition like it was a good idea. They basically prearranged their own destruction. These orcs were 1 spark away from a self-inflicted catastrophe, and they stored the sparks right there. Spread out on watch, I ordered the cavalry. Grash, prepare torches. Right on cue, the western camp erupted. Shouting. Commotion. Then a sharp elven whistle pierced the night sky. Attack! Attack! Orc sentries screaming from the west side. Green light bloomed on the western horizon. Some kind of elf magic trick. Ethel. Right on time. Beautiful, condescending, perfectly punctual Ethel. Now? Go, go, go. Cavalry ripped the tarps off. Fire oil jars underneath. I grabbed a clay pot personally, hurled it at the nearest trebuchet's base. Crash. Thick oil soaked into the wooden structure instantly. 20 torches flew simultaneously. 3 trebuchets became 3 pillars of fire shooting into the night sky. The flames hit the stored oil pots. Chain explosions. One after another. Boom, boom, boom. Like the world's most destructive fireworks show. Mission complete. Destroy trebuchets, 3/3. XP 1,500. The entire camp went insane. Orcs running everywhere. Some attacking each other in the confusion. Fire spreading to tents. Pure pandemonium. Retreat. Same way we came. The cavalry formed up, but orcs had already flooded our exit route. Drawn by the explosions, warriors poured in from every direction. Punch through. I drew Frostsworn. The blade sang. First orc grabbed his throat and dropped. Blood froze on the snow before it finished pooling. Frostsworn was cold tonight. We hit the orc blockade like a battering ram of horses and steel. But more green bodies kept coming from every side. A javelin scraped through a gap in my armor and sliced my left arm. Blood bead scattered. HP 92/120. Hold formation. I hacked an orc out of my path. Frostsworn's runes blazed as it tasted blood. The blade literally pulsed with hunger. Blood drink triggered. HP 92/95. My sword was healing me by drinking orc blood. I was a mobile vampire weapon system on horseback. Disturbing? Yes. Effective? Extremely. We were almost clear when a shadow the size of a building blocked our escape. A frost wolf, 3 meters tall, and riding it, an orc draped head to toe in bone decorations. His double-bladed war axe was bigger than any I'd seen before. The blade was engraved with a bleeding spear emblem. Warning, elite unit detected, blood spear chieftain Kolag. Oh great. The final boss showed up personally. Human insect. His voice sounded like continental plates grinding together. He hoisted that door-sized axe. I'll hang your skull on my... An arrow wrapped in silver light shot from the darkness and buried itself in the giant wolf's left eye. The beast screamed and reared backward. Kolag nearly flew off the saddle. Ethel, coming in clutch from the treetops. Again. Run, I roared. The cavalry seized the opening and tore through the gap in the orc line. I caught a glimpse of Ethel flickering between tree branches, giving me a get moving gesture. Behind us, Kolag's rage scream shook the forest. Xueygenji. I'll make your skull into a drinking cup. Another chieftain, another skull cup threat. Is there a newsletter these guys subscribe to? Skull Cups Monthly. Creative ways to threaten your enemies? The drawbridge slammed shut behind us. Only then did I feel my left arm burning like someone had poured hot coals into the wound. But there was no time for bandages. War horns blared from the wall. The orc army, all of it, was moving. We'd destroyed their trebuchets, humiliated their chieftain, and blown up their camp. They weren't waiting until morning anymore. They were coming now. I ran up the wall, arm bleeding, Frostsworn in hand. The view stole my breath. Thousands of torches moving toward the castle like a river of fire. The entire Frostwhisper mountainside was alive with angry, glowing, approaching death. Battle stations, my voice echoed into the night. Tonight, we make the Frostwhisper Mountains remember the name Xueygenji. Catapults rotated. Archers drew. 200 fresh soldiers stood ready on the walls and in the courtyard. I gripped Frostsworn. The blood runes glowed in the moonlight, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. No trebuchets for them. 230 new soldiers for me. A legendary sword that was practically purring with anticipation. The orcs wanted a siege. They just lost their siege engines and gained a very motivated defender with 50,000 dinars and 0 chill. Come get some, Kolag. The Starfallers opened for business. I stood at the highest point on the wall like a conductor about to lead the symphony of violence. The system laid out the scoreboard. Siege defense initiated. Enemy, 1,200 Bloodspear orcs. My forces, 200 infantry, 100 archers, 40 Battanian archers, 80 Bloodscar warriors. Special weapons, for flame catapults. 200 fresh infantry, 100 archers, 40 Battanian murder machines, 80 friendly orcs, and 4 catapults loaded with fire. Against 1,200 angry green people. Let's go. I positioned myself next to the western catapult. My favorite toy. My happy place. The spot where physics meets arson. Load. Soldiers slammed fire bombs into the catapult frames. 400 meters. Orc vanguard entering range. I squinted, found the densest cluster of green targets, and personally adjusted the calibration dial. The winch groaned. All 4 catapults fired simultaneously. 4 firebombs streaked across the night sky like angry comets. For explosions. For blooming flowers made of death. Hit. 12 orc warriors killed. XP 120. Firelight illuminated a sea of snarling orc faces. Every single one was carrying 3-4 throwing spears. Standardized equipment. Matching weapons. Bloodspear tribe. I laughed coldly. Now the name makes sense. Second volley loaded and ready. Target the ladders. I cranked the winch, feeling the tension build. Release. Firebombs dropped like divine judgment directly onto 3 siege ladders. Orcs on the ladders caught fire. 2 of them, fully engulfed in flames, kept charging forward anyway, until wall archers turned them into burning pincushions. Dedication to the job? A+. Survival instincts? F-. Hit. 18 killed. XP 180. Third volley hit behind the orc lines. An orange fireball swallowed a dozen orc workers hauling a battering ram. They never saw it coming, but the main force kept advancing. Front row, heavy orcs with massive shields. Behind them, 3 rows of javelin throwers. Behind those, ladder assault teams. Professional formation. These weren't random raiders. This was an army. Watch the javelin throwers. Shields up. Half a second later, hundreds of short, thick javelins rose from the orc formation like a locust swarm. These weren't normal spears. Shorter, heavier, with serrated tips and blood-soaked cloth streamers. The blood spear's signature weapon. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Javelins hammered the battlements like deadly hail. 2 soldiers got pinned to the wall behind them, blood running down the stone cracks. These things punched through stone cover. That's not a javelin. That's a portable ballista disguised as a stick. Switch to grapeshot, I screamed. Archers, focus the javelin throwers. Soldiers swapped the catapult loads to nets packed with iron nails and rock fragments. Close-range crowd control. For catapults roared. Thousands of metal shards sprayed out in a fan pattern like the world's most violent sprinkler system. The javelin formation got shredded. Bodies dropping. Screaming everywhere. The Batanian archers, Ethel's beautiful, overpowered, terrifying Batanians, showed their class. They specifically targeted orcs loading their second javelin volley. Every arrow found a throat or an eye socket. Surgical precision at maximum rate of fire. One towering orc officer was organizing the third javelin wave. 3 arrows hit him simultaneously from 3 different angles. He fell like a demolished building, and his entire squad dissolved into panic. Nice shot. I gave Ethel a thumbs up. She acknowledged with the tiniest nod. Silver hair flowing like liquid moonlight in the firelight. 0 wasted emotion. Maximum wasted orcs. Then the ladders hit the wall. First orc head popped over the battlements. I split it open with Frostsworn before he finished blinking. The sword drank the blood, runes blazing, warmth flooding my arm. Blood drink triggered. HP 3. My sword just had breakfast. Back to work. Hold the gaps, I spun to the soldiers. Fire bombs on the ladder bases. I personally grabbed a fire bomb and hurled it over the edge. These special munitions had thin shells. On impact, they shattered and created instant infernos. Perfect arc direct hit on a ladder base. The clay pot exploded. Sticky flames crawled up the ladder like burning snakes. 6 orcs still climbing became human. Well, ORC, torches. Their screams were audible over the battle noise. 6 killed. XP 60. I kicked over a barrel of fire oil next to me. Black liquid poured down the wall's drainage channels, pooling around the ladder base below. Tossed a torch. Flames shot up 3 meters high. The orcs crowded at the bottom got swallowed whole. Burning orcs staggered into their own ranks, setting more orcs on fire, which caused more panic. It was a chain reaction of flaming chaos. 23 killed. XP 230. More oil. Keep pouring. Soldiers paired up, hauling barrels. Black oil cascaded down 12 ladders simultaneously. Second round of torches dropped. The entire outside of my castle wall became a wall of fire. 30+ ladders burning at once. Orcs falling off like flaming rain. The heat was so intense I could feel it from the top of the wall. I was literally cooking orcs on the side of my own castle. The smell was horrible, but the results were spectacular. Then the wall shook under my feet. Warning, gate under attack. Durability, 100%, 85%. Battering ram. 20+ orcs shoving an iron-banded tree trunk into my front door. Fire oil. Last barrel. Now, soldiers wrestled the final oil barrel over the edge. A dozen fire arrows rained down simultaneously. The ram crew became a bonfire. Screaming. Running. Done. Battering ram destroyed. XP 150. Finally, the orc retreat horn sounded. I slumped against the battlements, completely drained. Below me, the ground was carpeted with orc bodies. Some still smoking. The air was a toxic cocktail of charred meat and blood that made my stomach do backflips. It smelled like a barbecue hosted by Satan. In hell. During summer. Siege defense victory. Killed. 487 orc warriors. Loot. 214 blood spears, superior. 87 orc leather armors. 32 frost wolf pelts. 200 grain. XP gained. 4,870. Current level. 5. 1, 125ths, 000. 487 orcs. Nearly half their army. Gone in one night. No trebuchets to crack my walls, because I burned those yesterday. No battering ram, because fire oil is the gift that keeps on giving. No javelin advantage, because Battanian archers eat javelin throwers for breakfast. Kulog brought 1,200 warriors and left with 700 and a lot of regret. My castle walls were scorched black, stinking of oil and death, and the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. The Starfaller held the line. Again, and this time I didn't even go into debt to do it. Progress. My lord, you're wounded. Royce's voice from behind me. I looked down. Oh, my left arm was soaked in dried blood. The entire sleeve had turned dark red. Forgot about that. Battle adrenaline is a wonderful painkiller and a terrible medical advisor. Scratch. I waved it off. System showed HP at 105/125. Frostwarn's blood drink had been sipping orc juice all fight and topping me up. My sword was basically a combination weapon and health insurance plan. Ethel landed on the battlement like a silver-haired cat, blood and soot in her hair. First time she's ever looked less than perfect. Kulog retreated. Temporarily, she pointed north. System map confirmed. Red dots regrouping at the destroyed North Village. Roughly half their original numbers. We'd shaved 600 orcs off their army in one night. Our losses? 89 dead. 37 seriously wounded. Royce's voice was heavy. Wounded status. His eyebrow twitched. Strangely, all of them are healing at abnormal speed. The physicians say they'll be combat ready by tomorrow. He dropped his voice. Especially the ones you summoned. System healing. My soldiers regenerate like video game characters because they are video game characters. A wound that should take weeks to heal takes hours. The medics were confused. The soldiers were grateful. And I was running out of excuses. Feed everyone. Rotating rest shifts. The orcs will be back. I pulled up the building menu. Walls at 80% durability, needed patching. Wall repair, 200 stone, 100 wood. Time, 8 hours. Confirm? Confirmed. I stood on the wall watching invisible hands stack stones and seal cracks in real time. Night Watch militiamen stared with saucer eyes. My lord, your magic is truly amazing. A soot-covered young soldier whispered. Yep, I said, watching physics take another vacation. Magic. That's what it is. Morning War Council. Sand table. Everyone gathered. They still have 600 plus. Royce pointed at red markers. But without siege engines, they can't mount an effective attack anytime soon. Ethel's hair caught the morning light. Kulog sent messengers. He's calling for more tribes. My fingers drummed the sand table edge. And our reinforcements? Silver Pine Rangers have blocked the Frostwhisper passes. Ethel pointed at several choke points. We can delay their reinforcements 3 days. What about the kingdom's border legion? I tapped the table harder. By the border defense code, the nearest garrison should respond within 3 days when a border castle is under siege. Royce's face went dark. When the Bloodscar attacked, the border legion sat on their hands. Now we've been besieged by 1,200 orcs, and still nothing. Ethel snorted delicately. It seems certain people hope the orcs will solve their problems for them. The second prince. Even from the capital, even with his spy dead, he was still pulling strings. The nearest border garrison was only 2 days away and they hadn't moved. That wasn't negligence. That was a deliberate decision to let me die. My lord. A messenger burst through the door. A knight at the gate. Flying the king's banner, I shot to my feet and ran to the wall. A lone rider. Royal flag. Scroll held high. By order of the king's special envoy, the 3rd Banner Regiment of the Border Legion is here to reinforce Snow Eagle Castle. The knight wore the same crest as Algernon's royal escort. The king's people, not the second princes. Algernon must have reached the capital. Showed the king the evidence. The old man moved fast. The castle gates opened. I rode out with my cavalry. The 3rd Banner Regiment's camp was already set up. Hundreds of military tents in neat rows. Cooking fires smoking. Professional. Organized. Beautiful. Border Legion 3rd Banner Regiment, Elite. Infantry X, 300. Archers X, 150. Cavalry X, 100. Morale, 85, high. 300 infantry. 150 archers. 100 cavalry. Elite rated. High morale. I nearly cried. Actual reinforcements. Actual professional soldiers. Not summoned from a game menu. not disguised as ancient allies. Real kingdom troops sent by the actual king. Baron. The commander gave a textbook salute. 3rd Banner Commander Leonid reporting. We came at full speed under Special Envoy Algernon's secret orders. I returned the salute. Snow Eagle territory thanks the kingdom. But, I glanced at the army's rear. The Border Legion's main force seems absent. Leonid's mouth twitched. Voice dropping low. The main force was redirected west, officially to clear mountain tribes. Our regiment only came because we received Algernon's secret orders, so the 2nd Prince pulled the main border army away from me. But Algernon, the king's man, secretly deployed this regiment behind the prince's back. Royal family drama was literally determining whether I lived or died. Politics at its finest. Regardless, your timing is perfect. I pointed north. Bloodspear remnants are regrouping at North Village. We must destroy them before their reinforcements arrive. War Council expanded. Sand table surrounded by my people and the new commander. 3rd Banner's job is cutting off the orc retreat. I pointed to the Frostwhisper mountain passes. They cannot escape back to the mountains. Ethel's silver hair brushed the sand table. Silver Pine Rangers have sealed the eastern trails. The northwestern snowfields are ours. Leonid jumped in immediately, tracing an arc on the map. But I caught a flicker of unease in his eyes. The Frostwolves? I asked directly. Leonid laughed bitterly. My lord, those beasts stand nearly 2 meters at the shoulder. Their hide is practically armor. Claws like steel knives. On ice, they outrun our war horses, 2-meter-tall wolves. Armored skin. Faster than cavalry on ice. The Bloodspear tribe's signature unit was basically a biological tank with teeth. No wonder they've dominated the Frostwhisper range for so long, I said. Exactly, Leonid looked grim. This has to be decisive. If they escape back to the deep mountains, he shook his head. We'll fight this same war next winter. Then it's settled. I slapped the sand table. Full army assault. We end this today. I turned to Grundon, who was lurking by the wall. Those iron caltrops you mentioned, do they work in snow? The dwarf took a swig of ale and wiped his beard. Snow's still thin enough. 3-pronged spikes, invisible once scattered. When a wolf paw hits one, he grinned nastily. Very entertaining. Not enough? I looked at Ethel. Can the elves slow down the frost wolves? She pulled an arrow from her quiver. Paralysis toxin on the tip. Requires a direct hit. Both. We do both. By nightfall, deployment was finalized. Royce leads the frontal assault with Castle Garrison and 3rd Banner Infantry. Leonid's cavalry flanks and prevents breakouts. Ethel's Rangers lay traps across the snowfields specifically targeting Frost Wolf cavalry. Remember, our target is Kolag. I circled his position on the map in red. Kill the chieftain and the Bloodspear tribe falls apart. Quest updated. Annihilate the Bloodspear tribe. Objective. Kill Chieftain Kolag, 0 firsts. Reward. 5,000 XP, 10,000 dinars. 10,000 dinars and 5,000 XP for 1 orc's head. Kolag wanted my skull as a drinking cup. I wanted his head as a quest reward. Let's see whose collection gets completed first. I stood on a snow hill breathing frost clouds so thick they were freezing in my beard. The system map showed 600 red dots clustered in the North Village ruins like a sleeping hornet nest. Ready, my lord. Royce crunched through snow behind me. I turned around, and for the first time since arriving in this world, I looked at my army and felt something close to pride. Front row, 50 Imperial Legion infantry in brand new lamellar armor that gleamed icy blue in the dawn light. Kite shields with matching swaying eagles. They looked like a moving steel wall. Second row, 80 senior Imperial infantry in gorgeous Legion scale armor. Eyes like hammers. Third row, 200 trained infantry in studded leather, thinner armor, but every sword arm steady as a mountain. Rear, 180 archers, including 40 Battanian sharpshooters whose longbows stood out against the white snow like weapons from another dimension. Which, technically, they were. Commander Leonid rode up, and his jaw nearly detached. Gods above. That equipment, swaying family reserves, casual, dismissive, like I had a warehouse full of elite gear just lying around instead of a video game system that vomited soldiers from thin air. Send the orders. Execute the plan. Wind picked up. Snow pellets hammering armor like tiny war drums. First sunlight hit the eastern ridgeline. Attack horn blasted. The Legion infantry began their advance. 500 iron boots crushing snow in perfect synchronization, a sound that went straight through your chest and squeezed your heart. The Border Legion's light infantry flanked on both sides, looking sloppy by comparison. My system troops were making real soldiers look like amateurs. North Village emerging from the mist. And there, the welcoming committee. Frost Wolf Cavalry, lined up outside the village. White wolves breathing fog into the frozen air. 50+ of these monsters, each one carrying an orc with 3 blood red throwing spears on his back. Prepare for contact. I raised Frostsworn high. Legion infantry reached behind their shields and pulled heavy javelins from their backs. All at once, like one organism with 300 arms. The orc horn screamed. 50 frost wolves launched. Snow exploded under their paws like white waves. Each beast was a 2-meter killing machine moving at racehorse speed across ice. 300 meters. The spotter's voice was tight as piano wire. They were covering ground fast. Way faster than expected. These weren't wolves. These were furry missiles with teeth. I gave the order. 180 bowstrings released simultaneously. Arrow rain poured down on the charge. Lead wolves crumpled, throwing their riders like rag dolls. Some orcs flew 15 meters before decorating the snow with their faces. But most wolves dodged through the arrows like they could see them coming. Speed barely dropping. The orcs on their backs were already cocking their throwing arms, muscles bulging like knotted rope. Shields. Every kite shield slammed into the snow. The formation became a steel turtle. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. First wave of blood spears incoming. The javelins hit the shield wall like a hailstorm from hell. Metal screeching. A few spears found gaps and punched through, pinning soldiers where they stood, but those soldiers stayed standing. Shields up, bleeding but immovable. System troops don't break formation because they literally can't. They're programmed for discipline. These orcs were throwing javelins at a wall that refused to acknowledge pain. Hold. Javelins ready. The wolves closed to 100 meters. Second spear volley incoming. Now, the front 2 rows held their shields. Behind them, soldiers rose in unison, heavy steel javelins already cocked. 300 steel spears screamed across the snowfield. At that speed, at that distance, the charging wolves had 0 time to dodge. The front of the charge disintegrated. One javelin punched clean through a lead wolf's chest and pinned the rider to the ground behind it. A 2-for-1 kebab. Second wave of orc spears hit the shield wall. Metal on metal thunder. A few more casualties, but the shield wall held. Gaps filled instantly. Wounded dragged back. Textbook. Third javelin volley from my infantry. Another 20+ wolf riders erased from existence. 2 rounds of heavy javelins had shredded the feared Frost Wolf Cavalry. The survivors, maybe 20-something, broke off into circling harassment patterns. Classic wolf pack tactics. Hit and run. By time for the main force. Infantry advance. Archers free fire. Priority. Javelin throwers. The Battanian sharpshooters spread into loose formation. Their composite bows outranged everything else on the field, and every arrow found an orc rider trying to regroup. Then, from the north village, a deep horn blast. The Bloodspear main force had assembled. Reform ranks. I wiped orc blood off Frostsworn. The real fight starts now. The wind shifted. Brought that lovely orc camprot smell straight into my face. Appetizing. System map showed 500 orc warriors advancing toward us. Front rank. Nearly 100 heavy infantry in patchwork iron armor, carrying tower shields and war axes. Middle, 300 javelin throwers. Rear, Kulog's elite bodyguard, led by the one-eyed chieftain himself. Shield wall. Archers ready. My legion infantry locked shields. The border regiment's archers spread on both wings, arrows angled toward the sky. 200 meters. I gave the order. Arrow storm number 1 blanketed the orc advance. Heavy infantry blocked with shields, but dozens of javelin throwers dropped. Second volley, more arrows. The orc formation started breaking apart. They roared and charged faster, abandoning formation, abandoning caution, pure rage-fueled sprint across open snow. Then the orcs responded. A wall of black javelins rose from their ranks. Incoming. The sky went dark with thrown spears. They hammered into the shield wall so hard that even the heavy kite shields bristled like porcupines. A dozen soldiers went down, pierced through shield and armor. Hold formation. Close the gaps. My voice cut through the screaming. The Legion infantry showed what real discipline looked like. Wounded men dragged to safety in seconds, gaps sealed instantly, not a single break in the line. These system soldiers were machines wearing human faces. 50 meters. Close enough to see individual orc fangs. Javelins, ready. 300 steel spears appeared over the shield wall in perfect unison. Throw. At 50 meters, heavy javelins don't miss. They punch. Through shields. Through armor. Through the orcs behind the first ones. The front rank of heavy orc warriors collapsed like dominoes. Their formation tore open. Shield wall. Advance. The steel rectangle lurched forward. An unstoppable iron glacier slamming into the orc battle line. Crash. Metal on metal. War cries mixing with death screams. The snow turning red in a spreading stain. I led my personal guard straight into the melee. Frost's worn blazing crimson in the winter sun. Every swing found flesh. Every kill fed the blade. The runes burned brighter with each orc that fell. Blood drink. HP 3. Blood drink. HP 3. Blood drink. HP 3. The sword was having an all-you-can-eat buffet. I was swinging, killing, healing, swinging again. A perpetual motion machine of violence powered by orc blood and game mechanics. Somewhere in the chaos, through smoke and screaming and the wet crunch of steel meeting bone, I caught a glimpse of Kolag's banner in the orc rear guard. Still standing. Still waiting. The appetizer round was over. The main course was coming. And Frostworn was still hungry.